It's a...
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to RLAfterShock, the best one-stop shop podcast for everything that is Rocket League esports in the European scene. I am the Eternal J, and joining me is Digital Bacon with more glasses this week than ever before. Unfortunately, we don't have the cam, so I can't show it off at the moment. But you know, I've been prescribed some shades, Bacon, and I'm not fucking happy about it. I really hate these fucking things. They're the worst.
Dude, stop being a diva and fucking get over it already. So many people wear glasses and you're feeling like it's at the end of the world. Oh.
But I look so ugly, Bacon, right? I just matched some girl on Tinder and we're talking the last couple of days and it's like, great, I'm gonna have to, when I meet her, I'm gonna have to look like this ugly shithead. So, yeah,
I'm get not... contact lenses, single
days. But they irritate my fucking eyes. We've discussed this on Twitter already. We've already discussed this
to it.
Oh my fucking... Right, Bacon, just shut the fuck up, okay? On today's podcast, we're not going to be talking about glasses and Tinder dates. We're going to be talking about Rocket League. As you might have been able to guess, it's a Rocket League podcast, the best podcast for all Rocket League esports in the European scene. And despite that, we're going to be talking about some North American news because players have been banned this week in what I'm going to call the week of the drama outbursts. We've got professional players getting irate on Twitch and Twitter, and all the latest from the RLCS and RLRS results, plus the Dreamhack Pro Circuit bracket that will be coming up at the top end of the show. But to start things off, like, Jesus Christ, what a fucking week it's been in terms of just fallout, Bacon. Like, there's been so much stuff that we've opted to actually cut one of the bits out of the show just due to, number one, relevance, and number two, just how massive it really was. Like, you know, we probably could spend 2 hours talking about it of its own right, and we just ain't got time to put sort of stuff in the show when there is so much to talk about this week. Like, what the fuck happened that just made everything just, I don't know, like everyone just sort of got really antsy this week?
Yeah, everyone had been taking those edgy pills, I think, and it just, way too many overdosed on the edge, and caused some real big problems in the Rocket League scene.
Well, I mean, I guess we can start off by talking about some of those things. Again, despite being an EU podcast, we're going to jump to NA to talk about this first little thing, because Demonator, a former player for the Pittsburgh Embers, I believe it was. I can't remember the team name because that's how little I give a shit about North America.
You shouldn't even give a shit about Pittsburgh Embers. It's the Fibion squad and all of that anyway, so it's a bunch of shitters as it is.
Oh, it's Fibion, really? Oh,
yeah,
well, that immediately...
Did you not see all the things about all the pictures and that about the owners and the website and that are just stock photos?
No, because that's how little of a shit I give about North America.
We didn't bring it up because it's North America, but yeah, it's just completely shady shit going on.
Well, I mean, this story is kind of appropriate for what actually happened in regards to the Pittsburgh Embers, because the Demonator was a pro player, who made some disparaging comments, to say the least. The infringing act was obviously a little bit of stuff that was sent over a public chat. Unfortunately, the tweet is now privatized, but Soulflare has obviously posted this and made a big noise about it. But basically, he was getting real frustrated at the drop shot game, and he was telling his opponents to basically, you know, again, obviously, you know, bad language and everything, but basically to kill himself using the N-word as a particular slur, which is really not advisable, to say the least. And obviously after this, Rocket League, the Psyonix guys conducted an investigation, put out a tweet on the Rocket League esports channel, on the Twitter I should say, and said, after an investigation into allegations against Demon of the Pittsburgh Embers, we've concluded that after multiple infractions of the player code of conduct, he will effective immediately be banned from Psyonix operated tournaments for the remainder of 2019. Now, I'm not sure if that applies to exclusively the RLCS and RLRS, or whether that also applies to Psyonix sponsored events, the likes of Dreamhack Pro Circuit and other things. But regardless, the point is that Demon has effectively been shut out of all major sort of Rocket League tournaments, for the lack of a better term. He was dropped by the Pittsburgh Embers shortly after this, with them saying effective immediately it's done. Well, I mean, let's start by talking about the issue itself, because there is a little bit of... there's a second act to this particular thing, so let's just talk about the actual thing itself. Because as I was saying, you know, not a good idea to tell people to go kill themselves in the middle of a game, especially when you're a pro player, and definitely not a good idea to use a racial slur. Like, you know, ask Sadakist about that. Like, he can tell you everything, no matter how edgy you want to be. That's a line you just do not cross.
Yeah, and this has been a problem for a real long time within Rocket League, because Psyonix has never stepped in for it. The only time they've stepped in for like banning and such was from cheating the RLRS in NA again. What was that, 2 seasons back? But here, It's always been a horrible thing about toxicity within the community, and that there's been no punishment for it. There's been in-game bans and such, but generally pro players have not been punished. We've seen it before on streams and such, and I'm massively behind this, of course, because you're the role models within the Rocket League community, pro players. You've got to be setting the example. So if you're able to get away with it, it sets a whole bad scene. And of course, you're building up the brand. The way Psyonix looks at it, you're not like, say a Dignitas player, but you're also a Rocket League player, and hence you're repping the Psyonix and Rocket League name behind you. And it's been a long time coming, this, and I'm just finally glad that Psyonix is stepping in, because we've seen so many times in the past where there have been rules against stuff like this, and it's not been taken. Even stuff like rage quitting during an RLCS or RLRS match, a little bit early. Those actually should be punishable by fines, and in the past, stuff like that has never really happened because Psyonix seems to be a little bit too scared to be forceful about that. But if you're running a tournament league where competitive integrity is on the line and all of that, you have to be forceful by the rules.
I don't know. For me, I'm a bit weird about this one because, like, coming from Counter-Strike, we don't have rule sets like this. We don't have any sort of, like, professional player code of conduct or anything like that. Valve just says, go at it, essentially, and the community are the ones that keep each other in check.
Well, that's because the orgs take responsibility for that, Jay. You don't really get that.
There's a part of me that feels like, well, Psyonix, I mean, like, there is a conversation topic to sort of bring up about the idea that Psyonix, should they really be as heavy-handed with this in regards to a pro player's a pro player's sort of professional representation? Because let's be real here, if you're a pro player, you probably should be holding yourself in higher regard, and you're doing a disservice to not only your organization but to the community as a whole. And honestly, I think Demon got enough hell as it stands in terms of, how the community outcried. There were memes fucking all over the place, and rightly so, by the way. Those memes should absolutely be a thing because, it's objectionable. You can't fucking defend this guy in terms of what he did. I will say that obviously, we do have heated moments. We do have situations where we say things that are out of character because we're frustrated, because we're annoyed at the game. That's why I don't play anymore, because it's just like, I'm such a horrible person when I play seriously.
You're not you when you play Rocket League.
Yeah, you can ask my former teammates, mate. Like, I'm not a pleasant person, and that's not me at all, because I like to think I'm a nice guy. I like to think I'm entertaining, but. Like and it's I've heard that things of this is like one of a few different situations where Demon has been involved in controversial language and controversial behavior. I'm not sure. I can't verify this because I don't know him. I don't know his history. He only came on my radar after this story broke. And as of yet, there is still yet to be like an official statement from Demon, which kind of brings us into Act 2 of this particular thing, which is Demon's sort of like overall, like, just the way he's conducted himself around this situation, because whenever you get caught up in controversy, I'm going to say
he's conducted himself around it. There has been like a statement. He completely owned up to it, Jay. You could have quite easily seen, that was someone just with my name on their account, because there's no sort of like link into it, a doubt there was ever a sort of report or anything put on. So he actually came forward and owned up to it when it was all posted around Discord and such. This was before Solfairs. Solfairs did that a couple of days after this had already been making the rounds and such. And so I'm going to say massive respect for the lads who do that. He'll go away, he'll take the punishment. One thing, a lot of people have been saying the punishment is too harsh to be closed out of the whole 2019, but that essentially is just closing out this season and next, which is pretty normal punishment-wise in like regards to, say, other esports and such. So he accepts his punishment, and he's a young enough kid. He's still, 16? So he'll come back stronger in 2020.
That's the thing. He's 16. He's young. He's impressionable. He's going to make mistakes. We all fuck up. We all make mistakes every now and again. I mean, this is a pretty big mistake. I'm not going to lie. But like, usually when you come out and apologize, you make a big statement about it. You say, look, right, this is what happened. This is, the situation, and I'm very sorry about it. But Demon seems to think the idea that the best sort of way to approach this is just to put 2 words in a tweet after the ban came through, and that was, "I'm sorry." And I'm not being funny, mate, but that's like sarcasm central, essentially, on Twitter, right? Like, it definitely
he followed
feels...
up with further tweets.
Yeah, he followed up like the day after, or like 2 days after, saying, "Look, right, it was very sincere." And it's like, yeah, but you took 2 days to imply that, so I'm not really sure if you are sincere or whether anything else is like that, or or whether you're just saying that to try and see if you can, like, get yourself back in better standing. Like, I understand the idea of like just going for a simple apology, because obviously the statement, the full paragraph and everything doesn't do anything, doesn't do like, it doesn't really do it justice, because yeah, you made a mistake, you shouldn't have said that, so you should accept everything on the way. But legit, like, when this first came out, I thought to myself, is this guy for real? Like, is he taking the piss, or is he being legit? And Demon as well has also kind of had a massive fallout after the fact. When the apology came through, he was like, saying like, I can't take it anymore. Like, popular opinion. This is my favorite tweet as well. Like, just pure edgelord levels of oh my god. Popular opinion. Demonator is a racist, homophobic loser who should just off himself, basically, is what he's tweeting about. Essentially just like, trying to like sell this idea that the narrative is that he is that, and it's like, well, if you went and explained the situation, I don't think that narrative would be a thing, essentially, Demon.
Yeah, and so, like you said, at the end of the day, he is like a 16-year-old kid, so of course he's going to be feeling like this. You look at even his tweets and such, and he's an edgy teenager. He's angsty. It's what it is. It's all your hormones, puberty, all that sort of shit going on. And so he's got the time. He'll have to pay like the punishment, that sort of thing. He'll grow from it, all of that. My point is that this just needs to be continued so that people will learn from this and not do it, because kids have got away with it way too far. I told you in the past, Jay, about even it happening in tournaments and us having to pull down, say, certain streamed matches, change them over because little shitters and given their team names like, racist slurs and that, and we can't change it. We change it and they get they just change it back and say smash or whatever, and then we kick them from the tournament and we get the hate for it. It's a bit of a weird aspect within this community where racism, swearing during official stuff, or even upholding your own brand and personality isn't really cared about. It makes no sense to me personally.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of lessons that can be learned from the Demonator thing. Like, number one, professional players, hold yourself to a higher standard. Like, you're not, and the anonymity is dying on the internet, right? Anyone can track you down at any point, especially if you're trying to be a public figure like a professional player. So hold yourself to professional standard. Hold your tongue. And if you really can't hold your tongue, get media training or something like that to make sure that you don't do this shit again, because you're going to get into situations like this. Like, Demon's going to get punished for the next, essentially for the remainder of the year. There's still like 8 months left of the year.
8 months, yeah.
He's going to miss out on this season and next season, meaning he's got to requalify for RLRS in 2020. And even then, he's not going to get another chance until the second half of 2020 to even have a chance at the RLCS if he's the kind of player that could potentially make it up there. And by that point, we've seen burnout hit from players so fucking hard because of the lack of shit there is to do already in terms of players that are not banned. This guy's banned now, how is that going to affect his professional career? It's a big waste of talent, in my opinion, to see this kind of thing come down. And obviously, it is his fault. It is his fault. So, players should hold themselves to a higher standard. And number two, the community. Like, there's something that people, I don't think a whole lot of people in the community understand how powerful the anonymity of the internet can really be. Because if you're hiding behind a keyboard, you haven't got a name, you haven't got a face, essentially. Like, you get used to being complacent. You get used to being, sort of like... You get used to being a dickhead, basically. Like, you have no idea how many times I've heard shit from people online who've directed it directly at me. I square up to them at LAN and they have absolutely nothing to say. It's just, it's a keyboard and screen thing. And if you hide behind a keyboard and a screen, you think you can get away with anything. And people need to understand that with a thicker skin. Yes, hold these people accountable for it, but be ready for this to be a thing, because it's been a thing for years, and it will always be a thing so long as we have the ability to choose our own names and choose our own faces. Like, Demon, I don't even know what his real name is. I'm going to look it up on Wikipedia right now because I don't know who he is. I've even got his face. He's got a fucking Shy Guy on his Twitter account. So it's legitimately like... it's that level of anonymity that will cause like these things to happen. So like, just start to expect it coming forward, because there are people who aren't in Demonator's position. There are people who aren't significant in the scene who are willing to level much worse things at you. Like, now, take it from me, I've had some shit flung at me in the past just for doing what I already do best.
And we're not even going to go on about the shower curtains, are we now?
Fuck off with those shower curtains. Fuck you, Bacon. Right.
Like, me and you seriously changed our camera positions. We had, like, one reason was we did have enough. Like, it was normally NA crowd, because in the UK, like, curtains in your bedroom, and that is absolutely normal. But that doesn't seem to, like, the NA side seems to just go for blinds, and we just had enough with people going on about bloody curtains, so we just turned our cameras around. It's weird.
Well, here's the thing, it's not actually changed, because the wallpaper in this room, I've been meaning to change it forever, it still looks like a fucking shower, like a fucking bathroom or something like that. So I'm gonna
wallpaper.
It is, and I'm going to blame my mum for that. Cheers, mum. I don't know, you don't listen, but thanks for this. Thanks for giving me this perpetual hell in the Rocket League scene. Right, let's talk about the next piece of news, the next piece of drama. Mike Rules is back in the news. Washed up pro player, former member of Flipside. I shouldn't say that. Ooh, I feel bad for that. Like, I'm probably going to get in his fucking shit list as well, but at this point, who isn't? He slammed the shit out of Six Mans this week. On a Twitch clip from his Twitch channel, he basically called Six Mans a posh exclusive club, and he thinks that also the guys like Remco instituted Six Man to try and sell the narrative that ranked gaming just sucks in Rocket League, and they essentially, like, he thinks it's all just a ploy essentially to stifle progression of the ranked players and the really competitive guys, so that way Remco keeps his job. I mean, those are some pretty fucking hectic accusations. Those are some pretty, some pretty heavy-hitting stuff to talk about with Six Mans. I mean, I'm not too familiar with Six Mans because it's a pugging service, and I don't really care about pugging services. So, probably you have more insight into this than I do, Bacon.
Yeah, so Six Mans, I'm going to straight up say, long story short, great idea, probably poor execution, because the whole idea about it's like a posh boys club, yes, it did start. The initial start of it was more over in OCE to try and get a lot of growth to the OCE scene, which it did by trying to basically improve the ranked experience. Because for those guys back then to consistently get some games in that, they would go and play on the North American servers. So here, where it's like, okay, we're just going to all meet on at the same time, and we just all throw ourselves into lobbies together and do it up that way, we'll track our progress. It made sense. Now, it grew off and, moved over into NA and EU. And the idea is still very good. But the problem is, for me anyway, this sort of thing it should not be aimed at solo sort of performances on pick-up team sort of style. The whole sort of plug-in service is brilliant for teams, isn't it, Jay? It's not really for single people within teams. It doesn't work so well at the sort of top end, and the way that you move through the tiers is very jaded. It's more of a committee at the top end voting, so you do see a little bit of just, oh, that's my friend, bring them through. Oh, I don't like one of the things that you quite often see is the guy that comes out on top where he's grinding his fucking arse off, but then the guys on the committee go, oh, but we don't really like playing with him, so he doesn't move up. It's broken because it's personal.
I mean, yeah, that's certainly something I would have to agree with. Because when I look at a pug service, the one that always comes to mind, the two that always come to mind for me, obviously back to my Counter-Strike references, is Rank S and FPL, because those two are essentially the big pug services. Now, my personal opinion on pugs is that it's great if you have an oversaturated sort of market, and like Counter-Strike, for example, where you have so many people who are in Global Elite, but there's no further movement up further than Global Elite. So you go to Rank S, you go to FPL, when you try and grind your rating up there, you try and win as many points as possible and get some prize money just by playing the game as you would if it was in competitive ranked, but on FPL, on Faceit, on ESEA, for example. And that's where I think Six Mans kind of drops the ball, because you have MMR, you have a system like that already in place in the ranked system. So there almost isn't really a need for something like Six Mans. And when you factor in the idea that it is a bit of a committee, FPL and Rank S, they have qualifiers. So they do have a committee in that regard, but they also have like an objective way so that way you can prove yourself. And if you score enough points, there you go. You get the promotion. There's no ifs, no buts. No committee comes in to weigh in on the factor. You just get the promotion because you've objectively proved that you are worthy to be into rank S. And as far to my knowledge, Six Mans doesn't have this kind of a thing. You can correct me if I'm wrong at any point. Anyone can call me out because I'm not 100% familiar with this thing. But even then, it feels to me that Six Mans doesn't really have a place in the grand scale of Rocket League. Because again, pug services are there when you've maxed out on the on the rank system already in the game, and there isn't really a max rank system in Rocket League.
Yeah, and it worked well in the early days. I can remember even Twitch sponsored it and tried to do a bit of like a Twitch Rivals early days thing where it was trying to get all the players onto the Six Mans, and then they would go through and it would all be based off of the players streaming themselves on Twitch and such. And the biggest problem is that you get a lot of personal aspects to it, where you'll see some players dodging other players, which sort of breaks the whole randomness to it. It's a great idea, but flawed in execution. It's the communism of Rocket League.
Wow, that's also some pretty fucking hectic accusations there, Bacon. Jesus Christ. You have any idea how bad communism really is? Jesus. Well,
like I said, the idea is good, the execution is god-awful. And I'll stick that to Six Mans. The idea is there, but I would like to see Six Mans personally just abolished and replaced with a sort of team system, which, as you know, Jay, I tried to get set up in the past, but just couldn't get the ball rolling on that one.
Not easy when you have so many restrictions imposed on you, but I think we can talk about that in another episode. I want to focus quickly on Mike rules as well, because while I do agree with some of the notions that he has about Six Mans, I also feel like it has definitely got an emotional charge to this one, because a lot of the time throughout his streams, and especially in this particular clip on his thing, he gives a lot of shit to Remco, right? He calls him a washed up player. He says that he shouldn't really, be a top performer right now in Rocket League. And despite that, he's part of Solo Mid, who aren't amazing, but they are still doing pretty well right now. I think they got a good chance to make it to the LAN. So, I want to know if this particular conversation point and Mike rules, whether he also thinks what we've just brought up about Six Man side, or whether he just has, a thing against Remco right now.
Oh, he's always had a thing against Remco. It's old rivalries, since the very beginning, essentially. You call him Remco washed up. He's on what is currently, I think, the second best team in the whole of EU.
I'd make a push for PSG, but I digress.
Yeah, no, I'm thinking just out of what is it? Liquipedia do the whole results and MR compared to each other. I think they're second best, with Vitality currently sitting at top. Dignitas, of course, this season have taken a massive drop, but they're something like, I want to say, 4th or 5th in EU. Don't quote me on that, of course, because that's just off the top of my head. But he is this old sort of... He's quite a negative guy. He's a nice lad, really, but yeah, he's just very negative on the stream, and I guess that's what a lot of old people go to watch. It's more like, the good old Rocket days of old, that sort of attitude towards it. And... he's got a little glimmer of truth, like I said, about how the Six Man sort of... It's not a posh exclusive club, but it is sort of jaded because it's too personal. It's not strictly, you've got targets to reach up. So there's glimmers of truth behind his statements, but a lot of it is very opinionated and jaded, quite frankly.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't even disagree with you on that one. It certainly feels that way. It definitely looks like that's going to be that is certainly the case. I think there's a lot of conversations to have about Six Mans going forward. So I'm hoping that we have another couple of chances to talk about it on the show. But for now, we're going to move on because we still have a lot more to talk about. Speaking of players firing shots at other players, Fruity gave a lot of hell to Renault Vitality just prior to the Dreamhack Pro Circuit European qualifiers. For those of you who might not be aware, obviously, Renault Vitality decided to take the miss when it came to the Pro Circuit Dallas stuff this past weekend in the closed qualifiers, because every RLCS team was invited to compete in the bracket, and they were the only team in Europe that decided to forego that invitation. It does leave a little bit of an extra sort of I think an extra spot in the open qualifiers, if I recall correctly, for someone to make their move up and try and get a chance at it.
No, it
Fruity... Sorry?
So there was just 31 slots in the closed qualifiers. So the second seed, TSM, just got a bye straight through the first round. That's how it worked.
That's fair enough then. All right then. Well, okay. Well, in that case, they did fuck up the bracket a little bit, but not by a massive amount. But Fruity was not happy about this. He called him out on it like very staunchly. Like, you know, his clip was like, no, he said absolutely I would have played in the qualifier if I was Renault Vitality. And he once again gave him a lot of hell about their excuses because Vitality was saying it's too time consuming for them to take part in the Dreamhack Pro Circuit qualifier. And I'm not being funny, but if you're gonna say the fucking qualifier to $100,000 LAN is too time consuming, then what the fuck are you doing? Like,
Jay, you realise what the whole thing is about.
I'm going to come to that in a second, right? I'm just going to say, you know, yeah, I do think that there's a little bit of a bit of a weird sort of like, you know, what the fuck sort of like element to it. And we all know, you know, we all know that obviously, you know, Vitality are the best team in Europe right now. They are looking like, you know, such a dominant force. They're looking at Dignitas last season right now. And, you know, they basically did secure their spot this past weekend at Pro Circuit because they got top 2 in RLCS, so they got an automatic invitation. But on the topic of that, like, you know, we've seen how quickly a team can just collapse under the weight of their own sort of success. Like Dignitas, this happened over the course of the off season. They completely have. They've collapsed. You know, that's exactly what that is. You know, they've gone from being the best team in the world during the European season last season to choking at the World Finals to top 4 of E-League to now being near the bottom of the table in the RLCS. Like, you know, they've had a slow decline and now it's really hit rock bottom for them. So we've seen how quickly, and we've also seen in the RLCS and RLRS how easily it is to take 2 losses and then concede off the back of that. You know, it happened to Secret, how they basically had promotions in the bag in the last season, and then they lost 2 results, and suddenly they're relegated to RLRS for yet another season. And that can so easily happen in both the RLCS and the RLRS that, honestly, like, I wouldn't have taken the risk. You know, personally, I wouldn't have taken the risk if I was Renault Vitality.
The thing
play
was,
this out.
Vitality was so far ahead that they were guaranteed top 2, so that's why they didn't play in it. It was pointless. They're already going DreamHack. Why play in this, which is a bit bad sportsmanship, but it's understandable. Again, I'm not going to really put the blame on Vitality for this. It's more down to DreamHack for the decision about RLCS Season 7, like top 2 from EU and NA, getting those all-qualified spots. They've already realised that, Jay. And for next season, it'll be the top 4 from this Dreamhack Dallas, like from the LAN finals, that get the auto spots into Valencia. So DreamHack already know the problem, realised, oh shit, this actually wasn't a great idea, and have already adjusted going onwards. But it just shows that there are flaws here, and that teams don't really care about, you know, presenting themselves playing to really benefit, because there's no money on the line here for them. They'd much rather, like Fruit said, probably just stream and such, because if it's too time consuming, then what are you going to try and do in that time? Scrim? Everyone else is playing here. It's just basically them making up excuses because they don't have to play in it, which arguably, I don't blame them. If you've already got a secured spot through, why the fuck play in? It should have come down. It comes more down to DreamHack in this case. But like I said, it was just an oversight. Everyone makes mistakes.
Well, I mean, personally, I would take a look at this, and I said that they do look a little bit guilty of Fruity sort of accusations in regards to the whole streaming thing. I mean, I didn't really watch any of the live streams in Rocket League at the time. I mean, we were casting, you know, during that Pro Circuit bracket. So, you know, me and you never had a chance to see if whether the guys were on Vitality were streaming at the time. But personally, if that was the case, that they just wanted to stream, like, you know, just a word of advice to Vitality, just fucking say it. Like, you know, honestly, if you just said I'd rather stream than compete in this particular bracket, then yeah, I'd be a little bit miffed that you didn't want to respect the competitive sort of nature of the tournament. But I wouldn't blame you, because let's be real here, like, streaming is a lot of money. Like, there's a lot of money available in streaming, especially for a Rocket League professional. Like, I'd say that there is more potential as a streamer than there is as a competitor in Rocket League right now. So, you know, if you said that, I couldn't from a business perspective, I would throw my hands up and say, do you know what, fair enough. Yeah, I'd be miffed. I wouldn't be too happy about it. I would be, you know, I'd be a little bit disappointed as, you know, a competitive purist, but I couldn't put the blame on you whatsoever. So I don't know why they decided to make up excuses like it was too time consuming or anything like that, but Yeah, I don't know. What are your thoughts about? I mean, I guess obviously you've already explained, obviously, that you kind of think like. Actually, you haven't. Sorry.
And in a lot of ways, it's better than what happened over on the NA side. For example, Cloud9 bottomed out both because they didn't care. They already knew they were going through, so they didn't care and just dropped out straight away, losing 3-1 to Upper 90 Esports and 3-1 again to RBG. So again, that looks bad for Cloud9, losing to two RLRS RLRS teams essentially, and NRG on the opposite end knew they had to run through on this bracket because of what had happened the day before. G2 and Cloud9 getting those automatic spots. Big props to G2 actually, as they did try their hardest throughout the whole of it. They did get dropped in the first round to the Dudes, but it was a 3-2 game, and Dudes were looking really good. Sunday. I was about to say yesterday, but it's Tuesday today. And NRG just... The one thing that miffed me was they weren't really professional coming into it. Like, they were continuously saying, oh, we didn't get sleep until, 6 a.m. and they were having to play at 6 p.m. or whatever like that. They were only on 6 hours sleep. And you're just going, NRG, you can't be that arrogant. They did not look good on the day. It just came until that very final, the winners' finals game, where NRG looked really good against the Dudes. But up until then, against Space Station Gaming, who did go through to win it in the low half, they were just scraping by most of the time. You could see they're really off in games and periods, and then they were just able to somehow pick up. It was like a weird... I don't know, whenever they'd gone and taken a large swig of Red Bull or whatever, energy drink, whatever, they suddenly would burst into life. But they would have games where they were absolutely god-awful and could have got taken by near enough any team that day. And it's all down to a really poor mentality there for these top teams that just think they're too big for their boots in a lot of sense.
Yeah, I would say that certainly is a bit more of a North American thing. I'm happy to see that all the teams in the of the 7 teams that did accept their invitation from the RLCS, all of them showed up and all of them played, as best as they could. Solo mid, obviously, they made a run through the upper bracket, a difficult run, but they made a run nonetheless. And the same thing could also be said for the likes of FC Barcelona and PSG, who also came towards the top 2. Some teams underperformed, but we're going to come to those results a little bit later on down the line. But I don't think that anyone really, didn't give it their all in this one. There was a lot of
basically.
Yeah, there was a lot of pissed off, sort of very depressed sort of faces. I'm looking at you, Speed, when they went out after the bracket and after the RLCS as well. Certainly, I think that we got the longer end of the stick when it came to. When it came to how things worked in terms of the EU versus the NA bracket for the qualifiers. So I'm not too miffed about it. It's a bit of a lower loss. Again, I can't really blame Vitality for taking the better business decision. So fair enough, have at it. It is what it is. You're going to DreamHack anyway, so all's fair in love and war, and right now we are at war. So let's go on to our fourth and final piece of news, which came in only a couple of days ago. Actually, no, yesterday, scratch that, excuse me, I'm being a dumbass. Because Stumpy made a tweet about the RLCS casting. And you know how much I love my conversations about casting, Bacon. It's one of my favourite topics to talk about in the whole world, obviously, because it's what I do. I love it. I love talking about the art of commentary as it stands. And whenever people bring up sort of conversation to the forefront, I absolutely love to go into it. I'm saving it for this show though, because it is a big sort of thing that had a lot of people talking on Twitter. And Stumpy, just to start off the conversation, he tweeted, quote, sorry, but we need to see much more hype from the RLCS casting. This weekend we had SSG 3-1 Cloud9, Triple Trouble beat Vitality and Dignitas, and some insane goals in the mix of PSG, and it's like a champ game is on, question mark, exclamation mark. Jump, shout, and go fucking wild for fuck's sake. Cool shit deserves some energy. I'm going to start with you on this one, Bacon. Because obviously you know me and you know what I'm going to say and you know how I'm going to go absolutely ham. I'm going to go off on one when it comes to this topic. So I'm going to let you start to just ease us in a little bit. Go for it.
So for me, this really comes down to poor casted duos. The actual best casted duo so far this season has been Achieves and Jorby. When they did a couple of games together, and it is all coming down to this, and it is this current season problem, and it is coming down to having 2 more reserved casters. The best combo in Rocket League, whenever you saw it, was normally I'm trying to think, Wavepunk and Lawler, where Wavepunk's a lot more, say, reserved, and that's his star, and then Lawler would come up and hype shit. That really worked. arguably Shogun and Carpet were just complete hype, but that really worked for them, and it was great fun to watch. And then this season, where it's just been two reserved casters quite back to back, like James Bott, good caster. Turtle coming in is actually been a really good sort of color caster. Bringing it's quite nice to see like a player's like perspective on it. But both of them, I don't want to be harsh, but boring in the sense where they're not getting hyped up. They should have not been put together in that duo. I guess it just, this would have been worked out beforehand by the casters and they would pick themselves or whatever. But yeah, some poor decisions this current season. And I imagine it's going to get changed for next season. So I'm not too worried, but it does show like some bad signs here when those decisions are made. And the largest part comes from, again, we were talking about this in the back end, where the NA casters sort of follow an American football and ice hockey, that sort of style. They go for more real sports rather than an esports sort of vibe to it. And it doesn't translate well into Rocket League, which, in my eyes anyway, needs to be hype 90% of the time.
I don't want to go so far as to say 90% of the time, but I do believe that we're leaning too far to the calm and collective side of things. It's like the casting style in the RLCS definitely wants to be American sports commentary, and it just doesn't work for esports. Like, esports is not American sports, like, or it's not even sports in general. So,
well, British sports commentary would be god awful in Rocket League.
Oh, absolutely!
Could you imagine?
Fuck that, mate. The amount of dead air, like
to Fairy Pig.
Yeah,
he's going to clear that downfield.
Exactly. Like,
and I'm asleep on my sofa. Yeah,
exactly. And then eventually some goal comes in and it's like, oh, what a fantastic one from Fairy Peak. Absolutely brilliant. 5 seconds of silence. Absolutely amazing. It's like, what the fuck is that? No.
Yeah, he really put his rear axle behind that ball. And it's just like, no, that would not work. Basically, what we're saying with Rocket League, you got to follow more of a League of Legends sort of style.
Well, that's the thing. That's the thing, right? Here's the thing about esports, is that they very clearly know that esports is not sports. As a whole. I'm not just talking about individual games. I mean, this is represented across the entire board. Counter-Strike have their own style, and it's not anything near traditional sports. League of Legends, as you say, nothing near traditional sports. What's it? Overwatch League in particular. Like, Overwatch League really wants to be mainstream sports. Like, with the way that they've structured, the production value and the team names. Like, they don't have any traditional sort of brands. They have their own, their own brands essentially that represent sort of like, like NFL teams essentially. Like, the Los Angeles Valiant and the London Spitfire and New York Excelsior. It's like, this is a fucking North American, sports franchise essentially. They want to be North American sports. But even in the casting style, they know that they're not that, and as a result, they go and they do things very, very differently. And that's the problem that I think. I'm not sure if it's like an editorial choice on the part of the RLCS studio, or whether it is just the North American style just becoming too North American-y. But honestly, it's been a trend that I've observed since WSOE, but the casters sound bored. And the thing is that this is only a trend that's cropped up this year. Last season, no problems whatsoever. The season before was probably some of the best casting we've ever had in the RLCS. So I know that these guys can do it. We've done it before, but is it just the case that people are getting bored with the game over there, or is it just a directorial choice? I'm not sure. I am frustrated because, the way that I've seen it and the way that I've always looked at it, when it comes to traditional sports, there are two things that I've taken inspiration from when it comes to casting. Number one is professional wrestling, because professional wrestling tells stories. They don't commentate. The commentators tell stories. And that's the one thing that we don't seem to have in Rocket League. The second thing is actually Robot Wars, because I like Jonathan Pierce's witty sort of British banter. But, that's Jonathan Pierce. Like, he's in a class of his own. But focusing on the wrestling side of things, when people talk about the issues that we have in commentary, like, a lot of people say we don't have enough technical analysis of the game, which is true, I'd want to say. But I also think that if we wanted to roll everything into one good product and to try and make it as appealing to a mass market as possible, like, there is no storytelling, essentially. Like, it's very, very dead air play-by-play followed up by an analytical sort of breakdown of the play back into the play-by-play in very standard sort of like static style, essentially, Whereas I think there's a lot more potential in the terms of the product that we could put out if we decide to focus on stories. Like, I think that we did a good job of that this weekend at the Pro Circuit qualifiers, because when me and you took on the end of it, we built the story of like every single team, it's their last possible chance, you know. And when we get into the FCB versus PSG matchup, we were like, it's the battle of the football clubs, guys. Who's going to come out on top? We've already seen these guys take on each other once in the semi-finals, and it was a close affair. Can FCB manage to do that? And when RLAfterShock had their underdog run, we built up this idea of the RLAfterShock clock tower. Do you remember that? I was like, it's the clock tower and the time is ticking. Whose name is going to be written back up on that wall in memoriam in Dreamhack Pro Circuit, you know? Like, it's all this shit that we don't see in mainstream Rocket League esports, to the point where I think that a casting in the Gfinity Elite Series makes the Elite Series product better than the RLCS, in my opinion.
Yeah, and again, like you said, it's not down to the casters. I would imagine they would be completely agreeing with this. It is more down to some sort of directive style of choice where it's trying to be more open and easy to and approachable. But the problem with that is it's not exciting. Some wires have just got crossed this season, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah, I mean, you know, like, I feel like the Sonic, as I've really explained what I think is missing, but it definitely feels like there's a lot of, you know, there's a lot of improvement that could come through from casting. And, you know, when it came down to the discussions on Twitter, like, I do think that a lot of stuff kind of, like, didn't really, a lot of it didn't come across in terms of what Stumpy was talking about, because there was a lot of calling out of their various different casters. There was a lot of the point was missed, you know, there was, it didn't really have a lot of, constructive conversation, you know. There was a lot of people saying, bring back Quinn, bring back Carpet, bring back Shogun, oh, Stack sucks, oh, fucking Wavepunk sucks, which is fucking incredible to me. Like, who the hell says Wavepunk sucks? He's great. And, you know, and the only real constructive thing that, I heard was about the other foreign language casters. They talk about, you know, the likes of the Rocket Baguette French side, who did a fantastic job, by the way, at Dreamhack. They got a lot of love for that. And the South American, you know, the Rocket Street guys and the way that they'd constructed things over in their studio. And there was a lot of love given to the foreign language streams. So, you know, how much do we think we can learn from the foreign languages of the Rocket League broadcasts?
Well, again, because within a lot of foreign language, let's just take football. NENA guys listening, soccer is what we're talking about. When you listen to French commentators on football or Spanish commentators, Portuguese, over football, it is so much more hype. It's just a natural cultural sort of difference here. So they've got a much better sort of like pickup essentially from how they've consumed sports and such in the past. So for an American or an EU sort of, or sorry, not EU, but a British person to come in, we don't look at what our normal sort of sporting events are. It just does not work like that. So we naturally should instead look to arguably copying other esports. Like, I know, Jay, you say about Counter-Strike all the time, and I actually quite like that style because I like a very conversational and then a massive, when things start rolling, you build up, and then just explode sort of hype. So that you've got a whole sort of transition. I like little jokey segments whilst just plays going on, because as a caster, you like, one of the arguments was that you miss out some stuff and you don't know when the build-up's happening. Those are actually quite rare, we have to say. Like, you can normally feel when a goal is approaching just from the build-up of play. You can see how one team has got some aggression lying down and the pressure is building up. You know, this one's not going to work because they're still pinging it off left, right. They're not actually going for the goal in the center. And so you can sort of get that conversation going. And then you just suddenly turn on the switch of great play-by-play to build up for it. And that's what we need more from Rocket League. Like, I'm not saying at all, like, being big-headed that we've mastered Rocket League. I'm saying no, because we're still way fucking off the mark. But I'm just saying that what's going on with the RLCS commentary is not there yet in my mind. And like you said, the Gfinity guys were so much better for the sort of story building. They actually took analysis in the Gfinity series, took very much a backseat during the broadcast, but that was absolutely fucking fine. You know why? Because they had the TV sort of section break down a couple of plays afterwards, which just fills that analytical need so well and means you don't have to do a sort of very much a cold, this is play by play, and then we do the analysis. You don't need to keep swapping over like that. I've seen also off sort of like on the online sections, a lot of people trying to do hybrid at the moment, which again doesn't work. I don't want to see again two sort of like arguably play-by-play casters and then someone trying to throw their 2 cents in. No, I still believe quite strongly in one play-by-play caster, but it's that sort of you two have a conversation about what's going on, and then when shit's going down, the color caster just near enough shuts up, play-by-play caster does his fucking thing, and
well,
then
that's kind of like what we do
caster
essentially. That's what we kind of do in the bubble scene. You know, we have like our defined roles.
Why we do it is because we think that's the right way.
Yeah, exactly. But just to jump back on the Gfinity side of things and how the analysis, technical analysis has taken a backseat compared to storytelling analysis. Like when I went to work for the Gfinity Elite Series in week 3 of the last season, like there was a big team meeting about the structure of the show and the storylines we were going to build into. Like everyone was involved. I mean, every single person from the casters to the fucking makeup artist. Like everybody knew what was going on essentially because they have that much focus on the product and a focus that I think that we lack right now in the RLCS because of the things that we've already mentioned that we think is missing. So, I think there's a lot to learn when it comes to the casting and to the just general way that we broadcast the game. Again, I would really like to see someone else take a crack at this. I really would like to see like another studio like your Gfinity UK or we've already seen Gfinity AU take on the OCE RLCS, and we've already seen Rocket Street take on the South America RLCS. I think EU is now the only region that doesn't have its own dedicated studio centered in its own region, essentially. So I'd like to see an opportunity for the RLCS guys some of the EU guys to get that chance to sort of like prove how we would do it across the pond and how we would be how we would go ahead and approach things. And, like there has been calls for that in the past. Most recently, I mean, not to toot my own horn, but fucking Cole was like, can we get an RLCS studio just to see Jay in to do RLCS in EU? It's like, appreciate that. I mean, I'm not sure how I'm going to take that on board since I don't take compliments very well. But, like, I'd like to see Cole and Stumpy take a shot at the RLCS. I'd like to see Shogun back on the RLCS with maybe Onset as well, and Damascus also going on to do that kind of thing right there, just to remove any of the biases of the friends that I've made in the bubble scene. Like, honestly, I'd like to see another take on the RLCS. We've already seen 3 different takes. Let's have a 4th one at this one.
Yeah, and again, I'm going to sort of be biased towards the UK, but it's because we got so many Rocket League casters centered around the UK that I think it could be quite easily set up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you've got the talent there, using some sort of like, even if it was just hiring out Gfinity to put on the production or face it like they did with the Universal Open as an example, something like that could be quite easily set up.
I mean, hell, this could actually be a fantastic way. Sorry, I'm just going to interject with this would be a fantastic way to get ESL involved into the into the top level RFCS again, because the Go for series is now gone. ESL are doing regional stuff in terms of the Brazil League and the Espana League, but if you honestly, like, you could not find a better tournament organizer or a better production company than ESL UK. Like, just get them to set up a studio in Leicester. They will do the contract work. They will give you a decent rate, and they'll put on a fucking bagging product for it as well. Like, these guys know what they're doing, and that could open up the floodgates to potentially even more ESL involvement in Rocket League. And imagine if we had an ESL 1 for Rocket League or an IEM event for Rocket League. Like, that would be
we know
fucking immense.
The overarching company to ESL also owns Dreamhack. That's why we're not seeing much competition. Also, that's the impression I get between, they've got their Dreamhack stuff going for the whole sort of like worldwide go along to the 4 pro circuits, and then the ESL's focusing on certain countries. I'm quite sure, like, I get the feeling we will get another UK Premiership sort of thing go down. They have tried it in the past, but unfortunately they tried it with 1v1s, which is quite frankly a dead game mode. Like, it's a good game mode, but it would have to be the whole of EU to be able to get enough high-level players in. And, of course, the viewership for it and everything like that. Of course, if you want to do anything Rocket League, your go-to should always be 3v3 because that is the standard. Arguably, you could do 2v2, but that's like a weird, awkward middle ground these days where it's only really used for ranked and people to easily get Grand Champ and then brag about it. But, yeah, if you wanted something, get a UK company in to do it, because you've got a lot of casters based around the UK that all have experience and can put on a great product.
Well, there you go. I think we've exhausted that particular topic. We've gone down all the avenues we possibly could. I mean, we could. It's another topic where we could spend full two fucking hours talking about it, but we're not going to do that because we have a little bit more to talk about. I think I did say that was the last piece of news, but I'm actually completely wrong about that, because to cut back in and talk about a little bit more news, RLCS have announced. I completely forgot about this because it's on a different page and it takes up two fucking pages because of the screenshot. So I completely forgot this was a thing. But the RLCS regionals and LAN have finally got a new format, Bacon.
Oh, yeah.
Finally! Jesus Christ, we've been asking for this for 3 fucking seasons, and now here we stand.
And there's still good and bad to it, though. That's the problem.
Yeah. Well, let's start with the regional playoffs, because I think this is the best sort of move, because the way that they've sort of set it up for the regional playoffs, for EU and NA at least, OCE and South America have their own systems in place. Personally, honestly, I would say that the South American regional format is the best one of all the other regional formats for me personally. Like, you know, I think that the double elimination bracket for every team would have worked up, would work perfectly for EU. In this case, it's a little bit weird because the way that they've set it up is that essentially the 3rd through 6th, placements essentially have to play in a double elimination bracket for all intents and purposes. They play through, essentially, the 3rd and 4th team play each other in the upper quarterfinals, and then the 5th and 6th team play each other in the lower lower round of 6, whatever the fuck you want to call it. So that they start in the lower bracket, and then the winner of that one moves to the lower quarterfinals to face off against the loser of the 3rd and 4th place. And then the winner of those 2 matches go to play league play winners number 2, or league play placement number 2 in the semi-finals in the upper side, and then league play number 1 in the lower side. But that's where the double elimination stops. And then, of course, they play those semi-finals, grand finals, winner takes the regional championship and first place seed in the bracket, which essentially means there's a second lifeline being given up to people, to teams who get to the 3rd and 4th position in the regionals. And I think that is okay, but I do think, honestly, that it would have been better if we just added a lower bracket to the original format. So that way, 3rd through 6th play each other in essentially what is essentially a round of 6, basically. Move into the quarterfinals where it's still upper bracket. Those 2 teams play each other in the lower bracket, and we play through that out essentially with an extra round on top, because I think that it does give a little bit of an extra sort of like chance for the 3rd and 4th teams, but I think it might be a bit too harsh on the 5th and 6th teams, because it's the same sort of thing where in the last season everything came down to a single series for them, where one single loss will cost you your chance at LAN.
To be honest, I really do like this format. I'm going to say now, it looks very complicated. Like, when you look at it, you're just there like, what, where, why? But I like the format, Jay. I've got no problems with this, and it really does give a massive benefit to the 3rd and 4th place teams. Naturally, the top 2 should always get straight into LAN because that's your reward. But in previous seasons, there was no reward to come in 3rd or 4th. 5th or 6th had the same sort of like advantage technically. EU is always the case of everyone's stacked, so it don't matter if you came 6th. You could have just had a bad league play and then knocked out of the park in the regionals. You can still do that. We could still see 6th in league play come out top seed for LAN. That's still a possibility. A lot harder now, though, of course. And I do like that 3rd and 4th seed as their sort of reward. 3rd and 4th from league play, as their reward, get a second lifeline as such. That makes it very much worth it here. And yeah, 5th and 6th have continuously got they drop 2 games and they're out essentially, or the first 2 games anyway. This whole regional playoffs for me is fixed, and a good thing about it is linking in with what what I'm hoping down the line from when we talk about LAN, but like the growth of like RLCS in EU, let's say it just goes to 12 teams, you could see this be slightly expanded out maybe to accommodate more teams in the regional. I doubt it. I quite like 6 teams in regional, but it's possible with how they've laid this out.
Yeah, I can't take away from that much. It does give an advantage to 3rd and 4th, but to me, this feels like a format that will have to be replaced later on down the line.
Certainly with being expandable. That's why it looks messy at the moment, because it's allowing for there to be 8 teams here, not 6?
Well, I mean, again, I feel like it's probably going to need to be revised at some point in the future, especially if we see RLCS expansion come down. But, you know, for now, I want to see how it plays out. I want to see what the feedback is. I want to see what the other pro players think of it when it comes into the actual playoffs themselves. Because we can theorize how well it's going to play out in theory right now, that we've seen what it looks like from a visual standpoint, but we won't know how it actually goes down until we try it in practice. So there's that. But there is something that I think we can talk about that almost certainly we can predict in terms of how it will play out in theory will also be shit in practice, because that's the LAN format, Bacon. Oh my god. Jesus, I hate this. This is absolutely disgusting. So the LAN format, obviously, with 2 extra teams coming in from South America, brings our total sort of rankings, our total sort of, like, you know, World Championship playoffs. Yeah, our total sort of World Championship totals to 12 teams above the 10 that we used to have before. The double elimination doesn't cut it anymore, Bacon. Like, it's not possible to run a double elimination with 12 teams. Therefore,
I mean, it is.
But you have to jump through some fucking real...
every single match. That is the problem.
And that's the issue with this new format, because once again, Psyonix have compromised competitive integrity to go for a format that is objectively shite and go and have the same number of games that they can stream on days 1, 2, and 3, basically, as they would have been able to do for the bracket. I'm just there thinking to myself, this is fucking dumb. This is the worst group stage I have ever seen. Like, this is worse than Leipzig 2018, excuse me. Like, this is atrocious. So, for those of you who don't know, the LAN format, 12 teams get seeded into 4 groups of 3. They play a round robin. The top 2 of each of those groups come out on top, with the third placement being out of the World Championship at the group stage. Then those top 8 get seeded into a single elimination bracket, which goes as standard as you would. Quarterfinals, semifinals, finals, the finals champions being the victors. I don't mind a single elimination bracket, because by the group stage, you should have proven that you have your worth, and then by that point, you've used up all your lifelines. That's my personal opinion. But this is dying for GSL. This is dying for double elimination group stage right now. And and we've seen it on the subreddit as well. People have talked about how there's potential for match fixing to go down. Not for money, but for the sake of trying to get an easier opponent, because you have that power in round robin. And with this limited options, like, it's a very powerful tool to use.
See, I'm fine with the single elim playoffs afterwards, the top 8 teams. That's absolutely fine. It is this group stage. Now, if we were to do round robins, I would have much preferred to have it double round robin, to allow a little bit more leniency and all of that. But yeah, we could have just had 2 sort of like double elimination brackets playing off with 6 teams in each, or however you want to do it. Group stages like this, like you said, are arguably you could get some horrid agreements, which are sort of like staging certain games to be able to get a certain outcome. But here, it just... when you've got 3 teams and you're trying to whittle it down to 2, it seems very odd, awkward, and I can only put that down to the need for every game to be on stream. Naturally, from the looks of it, Group A and B would be played out on... they'd be trying to play out, say, Group A and B on day 1, Group C and D on day 2, and then the playoffs would all be on the 3rd day. And it just seems very off to me. Yes.
Oh my god, I absolutely despise this. This is just... what this format is calling for right now is an adjustment to how many teams attend the RLCS, because obviously with South America coming in, they wanted to add 2 more teams because South America. I think that now that we have 4 regions, we should have 4 teams from each region. 4 from EU, 4 from NA, 4 from SAM, and 4 from OCE. That way we have 16 teams. This is perfect to run a double elimination GSL group stage and a single elimination playoff bracket. Yes, that does increase the number of games because it increases the number of teams. But, as I've said in the past, as we said with the Renegade Cup more specifically, when you compromise competitive integrity for the sake of a broadcast, you compromise everything. The product will suffer as a result. You know, the broadcast, the broadcast itself, while the games and the matches and the tournament isn't necessarily the forefront of the broadcast and entertainment side of things, it's still the backbone of everything in regards to this esport. So the fact that they've compromised that once again to do this, it is fucking just what is going on over in Psyonix HQ right now? Like, who came up with this idea? Like, this is worse than the esports shop.
So, for me, this looks like it's the start for a transition to 16 teams next year, and it'd be 4 groups of 4. So they're adding.
So we've got 2 seasons of this shit, essentially. Great, fantastic, absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, it's the awkward transition now for a transition later, like setting the foundations. My difference to you, though, Jay, is that I'm wanting 2 of those 4 slots to go to Asia, of course, and then those last 2 slots, I've said it, I would love to see an EU and NA wildcard coming out for that. Yes, it's unfair to the other regions where they would only have 2, but as we know, a lot of power comes from EU and NA, and I wouldn't want that sort of wildcard slot from both regions to be handed straight to the RLCS teams. No, I'm talking an open sort of, not dream, like a Dreamhack sort of esque. You've got your open qualifiers and then a closed one. So any team from either region could get to LAN. It would not benefit them in, I don't know, a promotion up to RLCS or into RLRS. No, but the prize money is still there. And the actual sort of hype behind just say RLAfterShock, for example, have a fucking fantastic day, didn't they, this weekend in Dreamhack qualifiers. But what if they were that wild card? They were able to do it. Because you got to think, they lost to real strong teams. They lost to Solo Mid and RLAfterShock. Sorry, not to PSG, RLAfterShock did. So imagine those 2 making it to LAN, and then they can, take down the other opposition, because they weren't there. That would be fantastic to have an unsigned team at LAN really showing off, and that would be massively hype for the Rocket League community as another sort of, we're supporting the grassroots. That's how I'd want it anyway. The same could be said over in the NA. Don't get me wrong, your point about making it 4 SAM teams and 4 OCE teams is good as well, but I do not want to neglect Asia anymore, because the Asian region is frankly got so much potential in it.
All right, then. All right, let me try pose a very different style. Then let me try see if we can. Let's try to do a little bit of combination. So we introduce Asia in the next season. And then we have regional playoffs that cross between the various sub-regions. So we have a regional playoff for OCE, Australasia, essentially, OCE and Asia. And then we have a cross-regional playoff between South America and North America. And then we have a cross-regional playoff between EU and CIS. And then we'll throw in fucking, I don't know, Africa or something like that. Or actually,
doesn't CIS already count under
Europe? Yeah. Well, okay. Well, basically, we'll do a European playoff basically for Europe, and then all the teams that came runners up. So actually, we've got Australasia, Americas as a whole, and Europe and CIS, and then those 12 teams that make it through, top 4 from those all regions, the runners up in the regional playoffs come to LAN anyway, and they play in a separate tournament that decides the final top 4 that makes it in. Therefore, all the regions are accounted for. Every single team has a chance at LAN. They get a second last chance, because I don't like the idea of a wild card. I think it's incredibly dumb. I like the storyline of that happening, but the truth is that that's very unlikely for that to happen in most scenarios. I just prefer to see, right, these are the solid squads. These are the guys that you absolutely can rely on to deliver at the LAN itself. True. So I prefer to see that come through. That way you have the best of the best from each region that will solidify, and a last chance for those that didn't quite make it the last time around. So that way you have a solid format, 16 teams, GSL group stage, single elimination playoff bracket. That, in my opinion, would be the ideal format to account for all the regions and everything in regards to in regards to all the Rocket League regions that we can introduce into the RLCS.
No, I respect that. My only problem is that, the CIS region is already in EU. It's the Middle East at the moment have to bundle themselves in with Asia, and so it does get a little bit tricky with cross continental ones. But I think we need to move on to our tournament wrap up, don't we, Jay? Because
we have spent a very long time talking about this news. Of course, I do want to pose this question off to the audience as well, because I do know that there is a lot of conversation about the RLCS format, about the way that we approach stuff like commentary and the product and the RLCS as a whole. What do you want to see? Do you think that things are going to be looking as good as they want to? At RLAfterShock on Twitter, because genuinely, I want to open up the conversation on this. We've presented a lot of ideas. I think there's a lot more that could come out of this, because I think we can all agree this playoff is this LAN format is fucking shit.
It's not ready. No, I'm saying it's not entirely shit. It is just not full. It's half an idea so far. Like I said, I'm putting this down to them trying to look to transition it into a full product later. But we're going to have to pay for a season, maybe even 2, and that seems odd as a choice.
All right, well, let's talk about that a little bit later on down the line. Again, at RLAfterShock on Twitter, at The Eternal J, at DigitalBacon1. Let us know what your thoughts are, because I'm genuinely curious. I want to know if you have a better format, how you would play it out. Right, let's go to our tournament roundup, because there was a lot of Rocket League this weekend. Dreamhack Pro Circuit, RLRS, and RLCS in the European region. The Pro Circuit was fantastic, and RLCS had some very interesting results. So what we're going to do is, because a lot of the teams sort of cross between each of those 3 tournaments, we're going to roll everything into one big package as we sort of like summarize all of the big results. You can find the brackets on Liquipedia, of course, liquipedia.net, and of course just search for the Pro Circuit in the search bar if you want to check out the bracket specifically for how the Pro Circuit goes down, because there's no way we can cover all these teams. I'm going to quickly summarize that by saying Team Solo Mid and FC Barcelona taking those top 2 spots. Solo Mid coming in from the upper bracket. FC Barcelona made it to that upper bracket final, but able to beat out PSG in the lower bracket and took that final spot, the second and only spot for EU in that qualifier. And then for the RLRS, we had Method taking on Baguette Squad, where they won that series 3-1. Veloce sweeping ARG to secure themselves in the top 2 of the RLRS. Baguette Squad also took on the Right Overs, beat them 3-1. ARG beat Complexity also 3-1. And then the secondary stream matches, Right Overs beat Complexity 3-1. Vikings beat Method also at 3-2. So your top standings, or your standings for the RLRS, are Veloce currently sitting at 6-0, top of the bracket, top of the table, guaranteed top 2, no ifs, ands, or buts about it, even if they lose the next series. Behind them, though, ARG have played 5 series, they've still got a couple more to go, but they're sitting at 3-2 in second place. Vikings at 2-1 in third place, and Complexity 2-3 at fourth place. And the bottom 4 are Baguette Squad 2-3 as well, separated by 3 games of game difference against Complexity. Method 2-4, Right Overs 1-3, and Xenomoon. Only 2 series is played, but they're yet to get one on the board. Then to the RLCS, Mouse Sports lost to FC Barcelona 3-1 after they took the initial game, and FC Barcelona completely shit on them. Then Triple Trouble surprisingly took a victory above Team Vitality 3-1 in that particular series, and it was an absolutely incredible watch, by the way. Easily my highlight match. If you want to go ahead and watch that, go back and watch the VOD, because it was amazing. Then PSG managed to beat out Mouse Sports 3-2, just about. FC Barcelona beat the Bricks very easily at 3-0. And Dignitas lost the Triple Trouble in a back and forth series that ended up going 3-2 to the Triple Trouble side. And PSG beat Solo Mid 3-1 with a overtime that lasted 3 minutes and 6 seconds in game 2. Leaving on standings at the end of this week with Renault Vitality still at the top spot, guaranteeing their top 2 placement in the table. PSG just about behind them at 4-2 on their board. Triple Trouble pulling in the rear at 4-2, all the same, separated by 4 game difference below the PSG side. FC Barcelona at 3-2. Solo Mid also at 3-2, separated by 1 single game of difference. Dignitas in 6th, barely holding into that top spot, but at 1-4, the Bricks are pulling in at 1 game behind them in the 7th spot, and Mouse Sports 1-5 in 8th. So that's your big fuck off roundup. So there you go. Let's start talking about some of the big teams and the big names. So I'm going to start with FC Barcelona and TSM, because they were the ones that obviously qualified for LAN. Considering where they currently stand in the regular season, it does seem like that they kind of needed this one. They kind of needed to try and win this spot if they wanted to not pay for their way in, and they had a very impressive showing over the course of DHPC.
Yeah, they did, and in the RLCS as well. For Barca, this was such a good fucking weekend for them. Dreamhack only being taken down by TSM in Game 5 nonetheless, Jay. So that was super close. Like, TSM had a struggling sort of route up as well. They got the bye, like we said, because of Vitality not showing up, having to go to Game 5 against Veloce, Game 5 against RLAfterShock, and Game 5 against Barca to take that top spot. Proper touch and go. That just shows straight there from the results. This weekend was stacked. The Dreamhack qualifiers were absolutely ludicrously nuts. It was fantastic to watch, and would recommend go look back over some of that. And Barca, super solid run themselves. 3-1 against Dutch Bim Bam, 3-0 against Mouse, 3-2 against PSG, and PSG were looking good as well. You got to remember. And then, yeah, just cutting out short from TSM. Like, proper stat. These two teams look so good and were rightfully the strongest two teams of the day.
Yeah, I agree with that one. Like, right now it feels like, TSM and FC Barcelona are very, very close alongside PSG and sort of that second through fourth sort of like area. And I think the next couple of weeks and the next couple of, and especially when we go into the regional playoffs and the LAN, we'll try and separate those three squads from who is really the second best in Europe right now. And for TSM and FCB, it's looking really, really impressive from them. As you said, a very good run from TSM, a difficult run as well. So you can't even take it away from them. Like, they came up against RLAfterShock, who we'll talk about in a little bit, who were fucking amazing. Veloce, who have been on a meteoric rise as of late. Like, and obviously FC Barcelona, who took them to the limit in the upper bracket finals. It was 3-2 on that series. So Solo Min had an absolutely legit run. FC Barcelona, I can say the same, as facing PSG twice and beating them twice, who right now are an extremely solid roster. That fight of the football clubs is looking like it might be very, very interesting if both teams make it to LAN, especially. Like, you imagine that PSG might send a squad out to Dallas, but, there's a good chance that both sides can make it to LAN, with PSG being nearly in second place right now. So you're looking at that like, okay, this could be a very, very fun sort of like rivalry to watch over the next couple of weeks and over the next couple of months in general, I think.
Yeah, definitely would agree. I loved the series, definitely, between Barca and PSG, both times being really close. The first series, like I said, going to game 5, and then only going to game 4. But PSG took the first game away from Barca, and it was all super close on the scoreline. It just shows the absolute caliber. And once again, I have to sing praises for Barca, because coming into this season, we were a little worried. They looked like a one-trick all-attack pony, and they didn't really have the defense in order. It seemed like it was only Alpha that could really defend, but massive props to Bluey and definitely Devo, who I was a little bit worried about Devo coming into this season, but showed me wrong, and I am massively impressed by the Barca X Savage side, as they have truly earned their place up at like one of the top RLCS teams, and it's fantastic to see.
Yeah, they certainly have been looking like a very formidable force. We had a lot of doubts coming into this season, but their victories have been pretty legit. They've only really lost to extremely strong sides in Vitality and TSM, and, where their history is sort of like worked up to have them in the middle of the table. And obviously this Pro Circuit victory is going to be massive for them. So I'm excited to see how FC Barcelona do at the LAN event. I'm going to be, it's going to be one of my teams to watch, as well as one of my teams to watch coming into the next season, as the next week of RLCS. But we'll come to that in a little moment, because right now we've got to talk about some other teams. A team that didn't do so well, unfortunately, is Dignitas. And I have to say, Bacon, I think it's over. Like, I think this team's done. Like, this is fucking, Turbo himself said it on Twitter that he thinks that this season of the RLCS has been absolutely shite for them. And Dignitas, like, it kind of shows in the Dreamhack bracket as well, because not only did they lose out in both of their matches this week against Triple Trouble, only match, this week against Triple Trouble, but they had a very hard time in this bracket. They went out first round to RLAfterShock, who we know now obviously were on a tear, but even then, comparing those two teams, like, I never, ever would have said RLAfterShock above Dignitas. I never would have said it above in 3-0 fashion. And then they had to fight through that lower bracket where they had a 3-2 series against Fat Yikes. Like, that's a fat fucking yikes from me, mate. Holy shit. Dignitas just, this is it. I think this is over. There's no coming back from this.
Yeah, and Complexity also taking down Dignitas, and Complexity having a real off day on the RLRS front, So, again, like you said, Turbo, and quoting his tweet, literally word for word, what a fucking disappointment this entire season has been. If we end up in relegation, I don't know what to do anymore. GG's Triple Trouble. And it is just showing that this team is frustrated, not knowing what really to do. All I can hope is that, because I do think that there is a strong case for them getting into that relegation promotion tournament, because they're on the same sort of boundary as the Bricks. If they can stay up, I can see them pulling things back, of course. They'll have the off-season as such to be able to do that. I reckon, at any case, if they do stay up, they'll probably take they won't go to Dallas. Dignitas won't fly them out. Instead, they'll be like a vacationary, clear your head, lads. You need to get back in the case. Don't just keep doing the tournaments or grind. You need a rest to be able to just set yourselves straight, because Dignitas are still strong, but it is just a showing of when the RLRS teams are taking them down, it's a worry.
Yeah, I mean, again, 3-2 against Fat Yikes. Like, this isn't even an amazing team. They've got Finex and then Tox
They're
and then
a good
Mads.
team, but they're
an alright team, but
team.
like, yeah, they're not even RLRS caliber. Like, you know, what the like Dignitas genuinely looked dreadful in this in this bracket, and also they looked dreadful against Triple Trouble, who, yeah, Triple Trouble still managed to have a good streak overall, beating out Vitality, but you know, Dignitas just struggled. They just struggled so hard in that in that matchup. Like, you know, you could feel the frustration coming through. Like, it felt like Dignitas during last season's World Finals. Like,
I was about to say that. Yeah, exactly. It just seemed like no one's talking to each other. It's just frustration, and the lads need to get something going, because at the moment it just seems like they all clam up, stop talking, and it's just hurting them.
Yeah, I mean, again, I don't know how you come back from that. I don't know how you come back from this. Like, I'm not sure where we go for Dignitas. It's the same sort of situation with Complexity at the end of last season. It's like, where do we go from here? Like, they're gonna have to have some seriously unlikely changes to try and recover this, because otherwise, I just don't see any future for this roster. Like, you know, there's a good chance they get relegated this season. There's a good chance they don't make LAN, which is incredible considering, you know, we have Turbo Pulsar on that fucking team. We have Turbo Pulsar, and
the problem
we have
is, at the same time, I've said it before, it's Dignitas. You could see them even just scrape that 6th spot, and then with this, even with the new format, them still make it through. Like, it's the mystery that is Dignitas. Even with them looking so dog, they could come back next week and look super strong. And in a lot of sense, I hope that's the case. A lot of sense, I hope it's not, purely because I want one of the other teams to have a crack. That I'd love to see Triple Trouble, Barca, Solo Mid, PSG, and Vitality, or at LAN, even Bricks and Mouse Sports to a lot of degree. So it's that case of whoever comes out, you know, deserves to be at LAN. Naturally, they're the best on the day. That's how it works. But Dignitas, I just don't want to see them doing bad, especially when you gotta think they just came off winning Leipzig, coming into league play. You thought they'd be ruling everything, and they just have not done shit.
Yeah, I don't know what to do with Dignitas. Like, they're a team that I think is an unrecoverable project. Like, you know, I said that in the past about Complexity, but, you know, like, again, it's a situation where it's like, where do you go from here? Where do you go from here? And honestly, I have no fucking idea. They've already got a coach. They've got Snasky.
Snasky's more of an analyst. He's not there to get the team feeling good. Like, that's not really his job as far as I understand. I mean, just get some team building exercises, that sort of thing. Yeah, just try and get the lads working together, because at the moment, when they get frustrated, they just all try and do everything solo themselves, and it is just so easily broken down at the RLCS level.
Well, Dignitas looking in shaky form. A team that's not looking in shaky form, though, is RLAfterShock, who completely rocked the show this weekend at the Dreamhack Pro Circuit qualifiers. Like, coming into this, we thought, okay, maybe they could make a deep run. Maybe they could do some good run. Maybe they might be a respectable dark horse. But the truth is that you have 7 of the RLCS teams in this bracket. How many do you think they can take down, Bacon? Well, they took down 1, 2, not quite 3, but, no, sorry, scratch that. Yeah, they took 3 RLCS and RLRS teams down over the course of their bracket run, eventually losing to PSG. But those teams include Dignitas, the Bricks, a close series against Team Solo Mid, and then eventually beating out Complexity. Holy fucking shit. This team, right, okay, look. Now, for those of you who don't know who RLAfterShock are, by the way, Tylacto, Astral, and Ixo, with Rafro being a main sub for that side. Now those names are pretty good in terms of European Rocket League. I think they're a mixed team. I don't think they came together for anything like this, because Tylacto is still technically a sub for Veloce in the RLRS. But this team, like, this is a deadly combination that I don't think anyone expected to do as well as it did. You know, like, this team really rocked the ball.
Everyone knows Astral and Ixo's real great mechanical, like, powerhouses. Tylacto, some people might argue, like, be cool and washed up. No, he just went into a little bit of a slump. Of course, he got knocked off the Veloce team because they just brought in What was it? Niels, understandable there. Because Niels is a great player, and Tylactor, like I said, was in a little bit of slump, but now he's on the comeback, which is fucking fantastic to see. And the biggest change for this team, because Tylactor have been playing a little bit of Ixo so far, a little bit with, I think he was trying out Breezy as well. And you'll see that from a lot of English players at the moment. English players are on a motherfucking rise. But Astral, before, was a great mechanical powerhouse, but didn't really have the mental aspect to Rocket League in, like your rotations and all of that. Always seemed a little bit off and was frustrating to play with. But dear God, did he steal the show this weekend? This lad, if he is really, and he can keep this going, he's sorted out the, the mental aspect of game rotations and boost control, all of that. He could be your next alpha. He could be the new dog to the RLCS. Like, I'd be worried, Tolacto. He could be getting stolen away from you if you keep putting on good performances. You got Dignitas there that might be looking to make a change, and they don't have to pay that Yukio sort of transfer fee this time around, do they?
Look, right? Fuck. I think it was what was it? Breezy or Junior said on Twitter something like I can't remember. It was a Junior. Okay, yeah. Something like, Astral has finally worked. If Astral truly has finally worked out his confidence levels, then we're all fucked. Essentially, is what you said on Twitter, something like that. And I'm like, do you know what? I can agree. Astral popped off in this tournament. He was clinical to everything for Aeriality. As you say, he could be the next alpha. Like, his tournament was massive. His performance was insane. Aeriality, like the only time when they got shut down was when the opposing force figured out how to outplay Astral. Like, he is the driving force behind this team, and they really, really went ham in this bracket as a result. Like,
actually,
again,
when it was PSG, arguably it's more on them really focusing and hurting on Tylacto, where he's a slight little bit slower than the rest of the team, but they were really giving him fucking hassle with their placement of shots. They weren't even, most of the time, aiming at each other, but just aiming away from the players. So it was more about just gaining ground than putting pressure on there. PSG played a masterclass game of adaptation to their opponents in this tournament, and you can't blame Aeriality for that. With those big brain moves, PSG would have been looking to take down any of the RLCS team. Unfortunately, they couldn't do it against Barca later, but that turnaround which they were able to put on was remarkable.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, things looked amazing from Aeriality regardless, though. Again, I called it the clock tower. How many names are going to add to that wall? How many RIP symbols you're going to have to add to that side of things? And yeah, there's a few of them there and a few big names. Aeriality, I'm hoping this squad sticks together for the upcoming sort of like events, and tries to make other qualifier runs and tries to make, a go at the Elite Series potentially. Because I don't think they're under contract for Aeriality. I think Aeriality are still a dead org at the moment. You can correct me if I'm wrong about that.
Tylacto's org. It's his own team.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
What was that thing about Aeriality then? Who back in the day they what was it? Aeriality like on
they were season like 1 or 2, but no, that was Tylacto's thing again.
Oh, well, hang on. I swear in Drama Aeriality are blacked out as like not paying their players or something like that. Hold on, let me have a look.
No.
Org blacklist. Who is it?
Fibion, Mocket.
Denial, Fibion, Mocket, Resonant Secrecy. Okay, I've
definitely not Aeriality. I can tell you fucking that, because they were Aeriality.
It might have been Aries. It might have been Aries actually.
Yeah, it was Aries, because remember they dropped out and the guy took the money from all those footballers from the Gfinity series, whatever. But yeah, they got picked up. Aeriality started off, made it into the RLCS. They got picked up by Team Secret. Can you remember?
Yeah, I'm being a fucking idiot about that.
And that is the new Fletcher side, just with Flame there. Tylacto's just continued his name forward.
Well, here's the thing, though. If they wanted to, if they stuck together, I think Aeriality could be a big team in the Gfinity Elite Series, I think. If Tylacto wanted to release himself from Veloce and chase this project up a little bit, then I think it possibly could happen. I've got a lot of excitement around this team, so long as they can keep their form over the next couple of months. But Gfinity is yet to be announced yet, so no guarantees, no promises on that front. Still, though, Aeriality, even if it is just for this one tournament, fucking hell of a tournament to go out on. So. Let's move
quick
on
word
to...
as well. Someone needs to update Aeriality on Wikipedia. They haven't been updated for 2018 or 2019 with Tylacto's current roster of that team.
I think that's because we're not really sure if they're going to be sticking together yet, but I'm sure we'll find out later down the line. Anyways, let's move on to Triple Trouble, because holy shit, what a week for Triple Trouble. I mean, the Pro Circuit wasn't amazing. You know, they had a bit of a weird sort of time. They lost to the Right Overs, had to fight their way against Game Fist and Echo Zulu, and eventually had a 3-2 series against the Bricks in that lower bracket, which ended up, of course, costing them in the grand scale of things. So, yeah, not the best run in DHPC, but the real star in Triple Trouble's weekend came in the RLCS playoffs, or in the RLCS season. 3-2 against Dignitas was the second result, but I mentioned it earlier. Massive victory against Vitality. Holy crap. Triple Trouble put up a masterclass of Rocket League this weekend in that series. Like, it was insane. Like, you could tell they came prepared for this opponent, and they outplayed Vitality. Vitality, they had a bit of a mare. They had a really hard time in this one.
And for me, actually, the biggest thing is that, yes, on the Saturday, they had the Dreamhack Pro Circuit, where they got dropped by, just quickly double-checking this so I don't, bang off any wrong results. They got dropped in the very first round by Right Overs, the RLRS team. They had to go take on Game Fist, take on Ekazu, and then they got dropped by Bricks. So rightfully, coming into Sunday, I want to say morale would probably be very low. So for them to go around and take down the strongest team in EU at the moment, Vitality, and then take down a Dignitas, which were really prepared for that game, like they'd done their research, and Triple Trouble still were able to take them down. Massive respect for the Triple Trouble side. They had fucking rocked it that day.
Absolutely. Like, it was an unprecedented level of quality from Triple Trouble, if they can do this, if they can
and they're in season 8 confirmed now, which is epic.
Wait, are they? Are they guaranteed?
Yep, they're guaranteed.
Oh, wow, that's insane. Triple Trouble. Oh, yeah, because they're 4-2. Of course they're fucking guaranteed. Holy shit, I'm being a fucking idiot.
Could you imagine? Wait. Triple Trouble gets set... Right, this is what I want to happen. Sorry, PSG, but you all can fucking fly you across. Triple Trouble gets second in RLCS and get that Dreamhack qualifier spot. That would all but confirm a fucking org picking them up, because it needs to happen. Come on, guys.
Well, here's the thing.
It's not their fault, but...
Here's the thing. They're up against FCB. They're up against FCB in that last week of the RLCS.
You know it.
No, absolutely not. So
That's
and
FCB
have a doubleheader. They have a doubleheader next week. They're up against Triple Trouble and PSG. So imagine if Triple Trouble did their homework against the FC Barcelona side, beat them, and FC Barcelona put another victory on their camp against PSG, which honestly is the likely outcome considering the Pro Circuit, considering the history between those two teams. And it's like, okay then, that actually is possible. That is entirely possible so long as Triple Trouble can get that victory.
That'd be nuts.
That would be amazing for Triple Trouble, considering where they stood, considering that they lost speed before the season even began. When we were at the beginning of the year, they lost speed and everyone was like, okay, this team stands to lose a lot. We were saying even during the season when Triple Trouble had a hard time, a very hard time against some of the lower teams. And we were like, okay, this is not a very good look for the Triple Trouble side, losing against the likes of Mousesports, right? That's not acceptable for the Triple Trouble side in week 1. But Casio has managed to fit in well with Triple Trouble. Ronicky and Tadpole still playing like a dynamic duo that looks incredible. I'm getting a Discord call, which is fucking really distracting, so I'm going to go ahead and decline that.
There was window cleaners next door, so I had to go close my window. It's super weird. Like just random dudes singing out. All right, allow.
Jesus. Sorry, I just got the shock of my fucking life right there. It was like, what the fuck was that? It would have been nice if people messaged me before I got Discord calls. But where was I? I've had my entire train of thought thrown off.
Basically, Triple Trouble could do it, and that would be amazing because it's a proper underdog story.
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to see it. I think it's possible. I think it's plausible now with how things have gone down. I'm excited for Triple Trouble. I want to see more out of this. Right, but let's talk about another team that also had a good week. Because PSG, we talked about DHPC, how they made it to that lower bracket finals. Like, PSG are legitimately looking like a really strong squad right now. Like, they also have a chance to make it into the top 2. We already said we want to see Triple Trouble do it. But for PSG especially, We've always known them to be an online sort of squad, but this is the best online squad we have at the moment, I think, in Rocket League. PSG are looking more solid than we've ever seen them before, going back for the past year, how they've played in like the online cups and, of course, the RLCS making LAN. So the next step, once again, I go back to that conversation about PSG, is are they prepared for the LAN event? Because they're looking incredible this season. There's a good chance they can make top 2. Can they come out just as strong in the LAN finals?
And that is a massive question, because we're looking at this here, like PSG, as I said, they're all got the money, they can fly them out to Dallas. I'm not too worried about that. Next week, it's against FCB, who they have shown they struggled against, and it is more of a bogey team that they do struggle against that speed and aggression. So I don't know how that one's going to come down next week, but PSG are a solid bet. It'll just come down to those regional playoffs, because again, they're secured into the regional playoffs as well. It'll just come down to how they place there, I reckon. If they get the top 2, of course, they do get ahead of Triple Trouble, then by all means, they're safe. But if they come out 3rd, 4th, 5th, or 6th, I think it's 3rd or 4th they can get, it'll come down to who they have to play against. For them this week, taking down TSM was a massive, unexpected plot twist, I think.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The victories for PSG were ridiculous. Mouse Sports was okay. That's expected. TSM, I think probably that was the upset for PSG this week. And with those 2 victories, they put themselves in prime position to take that 2nd spot. And if there's a chance, in fact, that they could actually tie up in terms of the scoreline against Renault Vitality. It would come down to game difference, so we'd have to see some immense loss from Renault Vitality in the next. Actually, no, is it possible? 11, 10, 9, 8, 4, 5, 6. No, scratch that. Excuse me. Well, sorry.
Yeah,
no, Vitality are guaranteed,
secure.
even with a loss, even with a loss at this stage. So, for PSG, certainly, they put themselves in prime position to take a second place here. It all comes down to that result, though, against FC Barcelona next week, and that's where the things really kick up for PSG and, of course, Triple Trouble, as we mentioned a moment ago, because both their opponents, both teams biting for that 2nd spot, and
Word, though. Barcelona take down Triple Trouble, and PSG, Barcelona take top 2.
oh my god.
Next week is hard. I love it.
Next week is going to be so fucking clutch. It's going to be insane. We'll talk more about our preview matches at the very end of the show. Of course, we've got a few more results to get through, so we can talk about that in a moment's time. But yeah, Triple Trouble and PSG, stand-up performance this week in the RLCS and, of course, in the Pro Circuit. But another disappointing week for Mouse Sports. They have only taken 1 victory so far in the RLCS, and of course with their 5th loss on the board, it puts them at the bottom of the table. And what is missing from this side? We sung their praises in week 1. We were like, okay, yeah, you lost to TSM, that's expected. Then you beat Triple Trouble, that wasn't expected. And it looked like, okay, a lot's taking this aggressive sort of striking, role essentially by the horns and ran with it. And Skyline and, not Skyline, oh fucking hell, why have I called it Skyline? Jesus. But Tigray and Tigray and Alex, excuse me, fuck me. Tigray and Alex, however, those guys, their duo has looked incredible for Mouse Sports when it comes to the striking element. So is the defensive element also missing? Their results certainly seem to prove it. Whenever they've lost by massive margins against the likes of the Bricks and TSM and Dignitas even, who haven't been looking like they're in great shape. Mm-hmm. Even this week against FCB. FCB scored a 4-0 and a 6-2 against them in that series. So what is missing for Mouse Sports right now? Because it's something very crucial here.
Like you said, it's a cohesive defense. That's pretty much it. I'm not going to, bag on Mouse a lot, because they're looking really good. A lot better than anyone was expecting this season. And you'll notice a lot with their series that they actually do take games off. They're playing quite commendable. I think the only time they sort of did shit, was against Dignitas, which was a 3-0, and Dignitas actually looking good on that day. The problem is they only had 1 series that day. Mouse are doing fine. The true test will come to that promotion.
Yeah, I was going to say, they're at the bottom.
They're at the bottom of the most stacked RLCS ever.
Yeah,
it's expected. If they go into promotion relegation playoffs, they've got another chance there to stay up, and in a lot of sense, I wouldn't be surprised if they stayed up. It just comes down to how they're playing on that day. But I'm expecting them to go into the promotion relegation.
I mean, at this stage, it's pretty much guaranteed that they'll be in promotion relegation unless, the Bricks really shit the bed next week, because obviously they're in a what's it?
Yeah,
they're in a bit of a bad spot
Dignitas
as
and
well.
Bricks lose both their games next week,
And then there's a chance that Mouse Sports won't. Yeah, and Mouse Sports win against Vitality, which is the main thing right there. Is like, you're not winning against Vitality. I'm sorry, boys. It's just not fucking happening. It's
then
just
again,
not
Vitality
happening.
have number one, secured. So from recent Dreamhack sort of scandally performance, maybe they just don't show up for RLCS. Who knows? Mouse Sports get the DQ win. There you go.
Oh my god. Holy shit. That's very topical of a joke, Bacon. Fantastic. I love it. That is amazing. I mean, look, do you know what? I would be shocked. I mean, I'm sure there's this sort of like a penalty sort of system if you do disqualify out of a game of the RLCS.
Oh, yeah,
I think
it's money. They get fined. Like, we're talking there, get fined $1,000 out of their prize winnings. That's how it's done.
Well, don't fucking do that, Vitality. Please don't. I mean,
But Scrub Killer can make more money from streaming, Jay. There we go.
Right, okay. There's a difference between missing a Dreamhack Pro Circuit qualifier and missing a fucking fixture in the RLCS, right? Like, I don't care how much money you'll make from streaming. You're up for $1 million this season. Fucking put your back into it, boys. But Mouse Sports, even if Vitality didn't show up, like, or even if they didn't come into this series caring, like, I still think that Vitality are going to have them beaten, by the edge of it. So I'm pretty sure it's almost a guarantee at this stage for Mouse Sports.
Could come up with a strat. We saw Vitality get taken down by Triple Trouble. If Mouse, where they've only got one game to work on that week, and they just near enough watch that game, they're meditating over that previous series between Triple Trouble and Vitality and try and mimic it, it's possible.
Well, I want to talk about, I know I didn't put this in the show plan because I'm being a dumbass and I completely forgot about it, but the Bricks as well as another team that could potentially be in the relegation playoffs. And this late in the season, I think it's important to talk about it because I don't think we've talked about the Bricks that much over the course of these last couple of weeks. And they have not... Go for it.
Mouse Sports are definitely coming out bottom. I've just had a look.
Are you doing the stats?
Bricks have Dignitas as the very last match of the of week 5. One of them has to lose it, so they're going to come out bottom.
Oh wow!
Like,
picking on 2 matches to watch this week is going to be very difficult because there's a lot of storylines. Oh man, yeah. No, I mean, yeah, that does guarantee Mouse Sports then at that stage. Okay, well,
so if Mouse. Actually, that's epic. If Mouse lose, then that is the decider for who drops. Oof. Oh. That's tasty. The only other decider could technically be who beats TSM as well on that day. And TSM, I don't think are going to drop it. Like, they've got the chance to go into that top 2 fight.
Yeah, they are the worst off team in terms of the top 2 fight, but they have a chance still. So, still a lot of breathing room as we go into the last week of the RLCS league play. But to talk about the Bricks again, they've had not the best season. Again, only 1 victory, like Mouse Sports, and it was against Mouse Sports. Ever since then, however, they've lost to some of the big squads. They had a struggle against PSG. They had a struggle against FC Barcelona. Like, this is a team that won WSOE, by the way. This is a team that we saw them win the first LAN of the year. And, we sung praises above Speed. We sung him to be, like, this all-important god of Rocket League right now. Like, one of the best players we have in the game. And it's just not looked like that at all from any of the players. Like, what's gone wrong from the Bricks this season?
Honestly, can't really say much. It is just all the other teams are so darn good at the moment that Bricks are just getting etched out. It's hard. I reckon it comes down to more Bricks' playstyle is quite a lot easier to abuse when teams figure it out. As the Bricks, I always say, play that adaptable playstyle. So it's that case of they quite often throw game number 1. If they haven't figured out their opponents, then game number 2 is lost. And then you're pretty much sure that game number 3 is also lost if you're losing the first 2. The mental game ain't there yet for near enough any team. Like, if we trying to think, have a little look in the series against PSG back in week 3, Bricks lost the first game 6-1. That's very Brick. Game 2, they won in overtime 2-1. Game 3, they won 4-0. And then PSG came back. They figured out what the Bricks were doing, and the Bricks just could not respond to it. It is that you've got to be unpredictable. Basically, in game number 2, whenever you're going up against the Bricks, you have to change your playstyle because they're changing to try and beat your playstyle. So you've got to change to beat whatever that new playstyle is that they're going to do. Swap it up and you'll completely throw them off. That is the problem with Bricks at the moment. They're unpredictable in the sense of they're going to change their playstyle. But because they're going to do that and you know it, they've become predictable. And it's a weird... It's mind games, essentially, Jay.
Yeah, and right now, Bricks aren't playing the mind games in the right way. You know, they're just things have not been looking good for them. And you know, we talk about sort of the battle between the 3 teams, and you know, Mousesports are guaranteed to be at the bottom of the table regardless. What do we think about Dignitas and the Bricks? Who do we think could come out at the bottom out of those 2 teams?
I honestly don't fucking know because, as I said, they're both going up against TSM and each other in the last week, which is nuts for just like the story of it. I can't see either team beating TSM unless Dignitas just show up on the day. That is the question. Dignitas don't show up on the day, Bricks are safe. Like, if Dignitas have another like week 3 where they just absolutely trounce Mouse and look like the shit again, then Dignitas could take down both. It comes down to, is Dignitas still going to be, you know, whinging and crying, so frustrated, or if they sorted their shit out, basically?
We'll see. Certainly I would, again, I'm looking at you, Speed. Kill the whinging and crying, please. Focus on the Rocket League. And we'll see how well that goes down because, of course, those 2 teams are taking each other on during the final fixture week of the RLCS. But we're going to talk about the RLRS a little bit before we go into those fixtures, because obviously there's been some things going down in those brackets. As mentioned earlier, all those results we mentioned a moment ago, a lot of big results that came through as well for the likes of Veloce, who in the pro circuit didn't do well, but this week of the...
I would argue they did very well. They came out like quite a bit ahead of a lot of RLCS teams. They did commendable. You would expect them to, in their run anyway, drop to the Bricks. They beat the Bricks and then unfortunately dropped to PSG 3-2, which is expectable where they're at.
Sorry,
I
didn't take a look at that lower bracket. I saw the upper bracket and I saw that they went against, you know, Complexity, beat them, kind of expected, lost
and then dropped
to
in game 5 to Team SM.
All right, then, okay, no, I'll accept that.
Veloce did have a very commendable weekend. They did.
Yeah, very good weekend for them in terms of the pro circuit, but this week especially is them guaranteeing their spot in the promotion playoffs. It's no question anymore for Veloce. 6-0. They got this perfect season down pat so far that the Vitality have not been able to get of their own right, so ante up, boys. With one more result left to go, one more match to play against the Right Overs, you've got to imagine the Veloce are going to be taking a perfect season right here. You know, they beat out ARG. They've faced against every sort of opponent that they've had so far. Right Overs are down at the second bottom of the table. Veloce, on paper, should have this final result in the bag.
Even if they could just do the whole, we're not going to care for this week, and even if they lose it, they've got top spot. It don't matter. So, in a lot of sense, Jay, I wouldn't mind it if they did just sack that game, purely because Right Overs have 3 more games, including that one with Veloce, and that would make the fight for the second, third, and fourth quite tasty.
Yeah, it could well do. I mean, you know, there's still a lot of moving room. You know, we've got a lot of different teams with a lot more matches still to come over the next couple of weeks. So, you know, it's not over by a long shot for the RLRS. But, you know, Veloce at this stage, you know, they have proven without a doubt that they are a very, very solid lineup. You know, like we were looking at this whole thing saying there are some very, very, you know, big names in this table, and Veloce are among those guys that probably are guaranteed to make it into the top 2, versus the likes of Method and Complexity, who were our other 2 picks for the three of our guys to make, you know, 3 of our teams that we picked to make top 2 this season. Those 2 have they've struggled. They've struggled a lot actually over the last couple of weeks. They're currently sitting at 4th and 6th for Complexity and Method respectively. What's gone
I also
wrong for
love
these
how you had
teams?
no hope for ARG before the season. You're like, nope, they've died off.
No,
And then they're doing quite good.
I'm going to come to that in a second, actually, because I didn't put it down on the show plan again because I'm a fucking idiot. But I'm coming to that in a minute. But talk about complexity and method for now, because again, they looked really good. For complexity, I'm not sure what's happened this season, but they have had some very uncharacteristic results, losing to ARG, who have stepped things up. Sure, yes, they are looking pretty good now that we know, looking back in hindsight, but, complexity came out as hot shit in the last DreamHack, in the Leipzig qualifiers. Flakes was looking like an absolute baller, and this time they've not really looked the same way.
Yeah, and the first week they did very well. I mean, they got their 2 wins from the first week. Second week, they only had 1 match against Veloce. Veloce had nuts. Third week, it was against ARG, and ARG have really turned things up at the moment. But it is that right overs lost, which has our still scratching our heads. Like, that should have never been the thing. Right overs, like I said, I'd love them to be able to get into the top 4 because it's just cool from the story aspect. But that should have never been a win on paper anyway, 2 right overs. So complexity really have to sort something out, because I reckon it's just unprepared for some teams. They just have not done their research, done their homework.
Yeah, I think maybe it might be an overconfidence level from complexity, because again, everyone was saying this is looking like a fucking baller team, and now again, they're not looking like a baller team. They're looking very, very awkward. They're looking like a very, they're looking like they've gone quite quiet here. And even in the pro circuit, when you take a look at how they performed, they were very, very quiet throughout that one. They had an awkward series against Veloce. Obviously, they lost that one. Went through some relative no names. They beat out Xenomoon. They did beat Mouse Sports, which is concerning for Mouse Sports, and they did get Demonator as well, but Demonator are on a complete downtrend, so it's not surprising to me that complexity would beat them out either. And then they faced against RLCS, which is when they ultimately lost. So you can twist the narrative a little bit and say, okay, well, they beat 2 RLCS teams, but those
Remember
2
as well,
teams,
right overs took down Triple Trouble in DreamHack. I'm just putting that out there as a caveat. So right overs are doing quite well at the moment, but it is just a weird sort of case of earlier in that day, the Baguette squad took down right overs 3-1, and it was in a super I'm trying to figure out how to describe it, odd yet close series. Like, the first game was 2-1. The second one, I reckon, if I remember right, right overs took that quite nicely, and then it was 2-0, and then I reckon it was a 1-goal overtime, if I remember right. Quickly popping up Wikipedia now. Yeah, good fucking memory, Bacon. Nice stuff. So that shouldn't have ever happened. And is that just a case of Baguette squad we're continuously putting down? I know they've got 2 wins, but they've also got 3 losses. So they're at that same sort of point as complexity. And is it just that RLRS talent at the moment is very much wishy-washy with each other, and it is just inconsistency is plaguing that level? And that's why they're not up at RLCS level, is just because they have not got consistency yet.
I'd say that's probably a decent shout, honestly. That's part of what the RLRS is about, to develop that consistency. I think that, obviously, it's counterintuitive to the way that the format works, and that if you go bottom 4, you don't get a second shot at the RLRS. You don't even get, a demotion to another league. You have to re-qualify for an open qualifier. So, we could talk about that again another day. We've talked about that so much on this fucking show. So, I do think that is, that's a decent argument to make right now in terms of the RLRS teams. Even complexity have suffered from this a little bit, Again, the result against right overs was not really, expected. It is a very bubble scene sort of situation to happen, and it has allowed the likes of ARG to shine in that regard, where they lost in the first week against the Baguette squad. We were like, okay, that's not quite the way that things should have gone, and they managed to, finally sharpen week 2, beating out Method and right overs, and obviously Veloce, complexity in the third week. So. There's a little bit of a weird sort of inconsistency right now in the RLRS that I will say, it certainly exists. But to move on to Method again, we talked about them a moment ago, but this season's not been a good one for them. They're currently sitting 6th in the league table, and we hope that Ocelon, applying to this team, to give them a full-blown, Dutch roster would have given a bit of sort of a bit of synergy that Method would have been able to work with so well, but honestly it kind of hasn't, in my opinion.
Ocelon's not the problem in that team though, Jay.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You know?
Those two are
absolutely.
just double committing on each other, and it makes no sense at all.
Exactly. That's what I was saying. It's like, you know, the synergy is gone. You know, Ocelon should have been the third element that gave them everything, but Riggs Ronde and Burrito B, like, you know, is the honeymoon phase over? Are they now the bitter old married couple that are just, you know, they've been together for the past, like, you know, been together since the good old Region Gaming days, and now they've fucking, you know, they've outlasted their run, and things are not looking good in terms of their own side of things, because it used to be a case that Rix and Burrito were fucking on the ball together, you know, they knew exactly what they were doing. They were like the Alex and Tigray of the Dutch scene, but now things are looking like that's very much not the case for Method.
Which is quite sad, because you don't want these duos to break up. Like, that's friendship.
Absolutely.
As well, you know, and that's what looks to be the case, and it's harsh, it's horrid.
Yeah,
I honestly
you
have
look
no
at
idea why it started as well.
You look at who's been with Rix and Burrito as well. Like, you know, they've proven that they can seek out and do some they can seek out talent and build them up to be some really, really good teams and really good players, you know. Like, you know, Rix has teamed with, you know, Tigray in the past, you know, under the Reason Gaming guys especially, you know. Like, you know, that looked like a really good team for them. Calix was one of the guys that came through. Switch was one of their subs. Speed was one of their subs in the second season of the Gfinity Elite Series. So, you know, they've known to be playing with some of the best in the world, essentially, you know, and they've had that chance to bring those players back up. So I hoped it would be a similar case with Ocelon to move on to do good things in the RLCS, potentially even bring Method into the RLCS as well. But now that the duo seems to have broken between Rix and Burrito B, like, things are not looking great in terms of the future of Method.
Yeah, nothing more said, and it's real disheartening because I don't want to say it. It's just sad.
I mean, like, you never want to say it with these teams because, again, I have a lot of respect for Rix Ronde. You know, I've seen what he can do. He is certainly, to me, the Fallen of Rocket League esports. Like, you know, stoic, very well experienced, knows, again, how to find a good player and bring them up to be a very good, a very good player of his own right. You know, world class talent in that case. You know, I think he's a good captain, and I think he's a good guy. And with the very OB sort of combination, like, you know, he did rely on it quite a lot. So, I'm not happy to say it at all. Not at all in the slightest little bit. But
in that sense, with, like I said, the problem being more Burrito B and Rix, they need to, as the core team Method, go figure it out. They need to talk and go over. They need a coach, I reckon, could be a big help to them.
Well,
naturally,
I mean,
if they can't figure it out themselves.
They've played with Shakaron before. I'm just saying, you know, I've said this a lot, a million times, you know, Big Shaq, my man, like, you know, get involved in the coaching game, you know. Pashu's coming back to be a coach. You can come back and be a coach as well. Honestly, I have faith. I have a lot of faith in the idea that Shakaron
been doing quite good. Do you see, look, it weren't amazing, but his run with, how they got into the closed qualifiers with, it's Archie and Blurry. Blurry's quite cool. Archie is a very unknown entity to me. I have no idea who he is, but Shakaron seems to be bringing in a new generation of players. Now, what is this all for? They're all free English players, so that's an easy pickup for Gfinity Elite Series next season.
Yeah, but do you think they're going to be any good, though?
I don't know. They forfeited out of Dreamhack because they weren't able to play. So Method got the automatic win there and then rocked to Dutch Bim Bam. But I just don't know. Like, I don't know that roster enough to be able to talk about. That's it.
Yeah, no, again, I feel like, you know, I do like the idea that Shaka wants to coach up new players, but honestly, I think he would have a much better time by coaching up some pretty established talents who seem to have lost their way. Again,
get paid.
And get paid as well. Get on that fucking Method payroll, Shaq. Please. I think you would be one of the best coaches in this game right now with your experience right now, with the level that you've played at, with the talents you've played by. Like, you know, you're not the most accomplished player in the game, you know, but Marky's not going to fucking coach anybody. You know, Pash, you might be able to do a good job of it, but honestly, with, you know, your current standing, with your age, with your experience, with what you've got to bring to the table in terms of Rocket League experience, you could be a bang coach. I want to see it. Call up Rix, give him the offer, and honestly, I think Method could go far. I think that's the next big step for Method right now. You know, get that synergy back together between Rix and Burrito B. It's like fucking marriage counseling. Just be that marriage counselor for Method, Chacaron, please. Right, let's move on.
I'm loving that. Like, you call them up. I just said, like, hey, Rick's my man. I've got enough
Rix,
you can't
you've got
resist.
a problem that I can fix. I listened to this show called RLAfterShock. These two twats that think they know everything about Rocket League. Right, let's talk about ARG.
You're not wrong.
Let's talk about ARG. Now, the shaky start in the start of the season where they lost to the likes of Baguette Squad, and obviously they ended up losing to Veloce in week 3. But those are the only 2 losses so far. Other than that, they beat Method. They had a really good series against Method. They beat Right-Overs. They had a really good series against Right-Overs. And of course, they beat Complexity in week 3, meaning that they are currently in 2nd place in the RLRS. And finally, this is the team that I expected to see that are looking pristine right now.
Well, you were saying beforehand you weren't expecting them to pop off in this and you thought they were done, but I told you they could come back, second bite of cherry, and ARG are looking super strong. Like, I really hope they get picked up. I'd love to see another Spanish football team come into the fray. Real Madrid, do it. You know, something like that. Pick them up.
You and your fucking football sponsorships.
I love football clubs. They need to go in. And, I mean, we still need that football. Like, just a Champions League, DLC would be fantastic. I mean,
yes,
it does
we've heard it a million
bit.
times before, Bacon. We know you love football, okay? Now stop sucking off the fucking Premiership dick, right? Let's talk about ARG.
Yeah, ARG, they're looking super strong. They've got a very unique, it's the whole Spanish bim bam style, yeah. And it seems to still be carrying on working. It does require all 3 of the lads to be popping off on that day. You definitely see if one of them isn't really feeling it, then they don't have... You know, the old days I was saying, hinge players, if they're not there, then they need someone to fall back onto. You don't get that with the Spanish playstyle. So they've all got to be there, which is a bit risky. But if they're all there, they can really take some names.
Yeah, absolutely. I certainly feel like they could. I mean, they've got a fixture against the Vikings as well next week, which honestly kind of segues into my next point about the Vikings because, they're a team that we wrote off very early on in this one. We thought, okay, they're pretty washed up. They've lost their, they've lost their initials. They lost their, their last team basically. So they've
lost their what's it?
Yeah,
the cheesy puffs.
I mean, Fnatic are fucking, orange, so they kind of work it. But, they lost their Fnatic sponsorship. We thought it's over. We don't think it's going to go well for them. But they've only played a couple of matches this season, and they have looked pretty confident. They lost to Veloce, expected. They beat Right-Overs, sort of expected. And then they beat Method, which obviously was a very close series on that week 3 stream. It was a legit result for the Vikings. It was a very, very big sort of matchup for them to have. Now, the challenges are still to come ahead for this team, though. And that's what I want to focus on mostly for the Vikings side, because they have got ARG next week, but they've also got to face the Baguette Squad, Zeno Moon, and they've also got to take on Complexity in the final week of league play. What do we think Vikings can do? Could they potentially make a run to the top 2 right now?
Yep. Praise be Pondex. He has really turned that team around. I don't want to say anything nasty about Snasky, but Pondex was an upgrade. Snasky wasn't really fitting in. With the current playstyle of Rocket League, it was a good swap to bring in a player that's a bit more faster, a lot more aggressive. And what Pondex can do for that squad has been brilliant.
I think we underestimate what Pondex could have done right there because, I feel like I definitely, I do feel like I had a bit more of a, a love for Breezy after XL. So I don't think I appreciated Pondex as much as I really should have done. He has been the element of Vikings right now. And if he can keep up that play, if he can keep that going, then I think that they'll have a nice sort of week 4. If I could pick 3 matches, I'd have to pick the Vikings matches to see how well they'll be able to do for our next week fixtures. Obviously, I can't, so we'll come to that in a moment. But I think it's proper. I think it's legit. It's another unsponsored team, unfortunately. But if they keep things going, then they could have a decent shout at the promotion playoffs. I think they can make a run to top 2. Whether they'll make it past that, it depends on who is going to be in the promotion playoffs in the RLCS, in my opinion. But that's a bridge. We'll come to that bridge when we have to burn it down, I think, Bacon. So, Vikings, legit stuff this week. Legit stuff. So congratulations to them, obviously. But they've got more challenges ahead of them. Again, next week's fixtures, we're going to talk about our matches that we're going to be watching. Vikings have 3 against ARG, the Baguette Squad on the mainstream and on the secondary stream, which, fun fact, I'm going to leak this right now. I'm going to be casting it. So fucking make sure you tune into Rival Esports at that time. And they'll be facing Zen and Moon on that particular matchup. ARG also have another doubleheader, obviously taking on the Vikings. They'll be taking on Zeno Moon in the secondary stream matches. And then the Right Overs are going to face, not going to beat Veloce, Jesus, there's no fucking chance they'll beat Veloce on that one. But they're going to face Veloce in the third match of the mainstream and face Zeno Moon in the first match of the mainstream. Bacon, 2 matches. Which ones are you looking forward to?
You put me on the spot here, and I absolutely hate you for.
Well,
but
I
for
fucking
me...
know we do this every single week.
Yeah,
right?
okay,
You should have fucking come prepared, you bitch.
Yeah, shut up, okay? Fuck you. For me, it's got to be ARG versus Vikings. Quite easy there, to be honest, where that, for me, is the real run for the top 2 spot, it feels, at the moment. Of course, week 5, Complexity have got a couple games there. That's the only one I can really see. Baguette Squad could still hold on, so yeah, maybe a second one there from the RLRS.
I'm going to go with the ARG matches this week. I'm going to go with ARG Vikings and ARG Zeno Moon because obviously, you know, those are some pretty pivotal matches that I think if ARG win those, they could potentially guarantee themselves the chance at the top 2, essentially, because if they beat Vikings one-sided, that suddenly puts a second loss against Vikings, and the best they can do is tie up against ARG. From there, it will all come down to game difference. You know, and for ARG, these are their last 2 fixtures in league play, so it's a very important time for them to get as many games between them and Vikings as possible, including a victory, and against Zeno Moon as well. Chance they could take that one. I mean, again, that could potentially guarantee... Sorry, not my fucking microphone. That could potentially guarantee them... Sorry, no, I keep swinging my arm. I keep swinging my hands in front of my face, and my face is very close to the mic, so occasionally I just punch Bacon in the face across the internet. But no, yeah, ARG. Those 2 matches are going to be my 2 to watch for the RLRS, and again, I feel like those are going to be the ones that will be very, very fun indeed. Right, let's move on to the RLCS, where our fixtures are Mousesports Vitality, Dignitas, the Bricks, FCB versus Triple Trouble, the Bricks versus TSM. And FCB taking on PSG with Dignitas taking on TSM as the final matchup of the night and the final match of the league play season. Bacon.
Yes.
What
Easy peasy. Go on.
What are your matches to look forward to?
Hey, I knew it was coming. Hey.
Of course you fucking know it's coming. We do this every week.
Barca versus Triple Trouble is a great rivalry that's been set in stone from last season. It's got to happen. And then last but not least, actually it is the last one, is the Dignitas versus... That's changed on my screen. Where's the Dignitas? Why is that changed slightly? Like, that's been rearranged. The Dignitas Bricks one. On my Liquipedia, that's right at the bottom. That's the last match on screen.
Sorry, because I took these screenshots a couple of days ago, so I think probably because they've actually rearranged the stream schedule. Yeah, they rearranged the stream schedule.
That's a really odd one. Huh. But yeah, it's definitely going to be the last one on the stream, Dignitas versus Bricks, because that is the decider of who stays up, and that is going to be hype.
I'm going to go with PSG versus Barca because of the football club rivalry. Because PSG, that could be their chance. That's obviously the last fixture. That could be their chance to secure themselves. But I'm also going to go with the Triple Trouble versus Barcelona matchup because obviously that also could be the chance for Barcelona or Triple Trouble to overtake PSG. So I'm going to focus entirely on the top-heavy aspect from the top end of the table where there is a lot of shuffle room still. It comes down to potentially 2 matches in that regard, or 3 or 4, depending on how TSM do against the Bricks and Dignitas. So honorable mentions go to those matches. I think that's going to be it wrapped up for a week, Bacon. Lot of stuff to talk about this week. It's been a fucking hell of a show.
Yeah. There was so much this week. Like, you know, it's a hell of a show when we just, I think, reached over the 2-hour mark, is it?
Oh, yeah.
So...
Like, we just hit 2 hours. And I also remembered as well, I was supposed to be taking timestamps because I was supposed to be adding those to the fucking YouTube videos.
You forget to do that?
I forgot to do that this week. See? I knew there was something I was fucking up. So now that we mentioned the timestamps, sorry, Trox. I know I said I'd do it in the Discord, so I apologise.
No, fuck you, Trox.
Fuck you, Trox. We love you, really. But that's going to do it for another week here at RLAfterShock. Again, Bacon, massive show, lots of drama, lots of results. And going into the last week of league play for the RLCS, the penultimate week for the RLRS, there's still a lot of action that can happen.
Oh, yeah, a lot of action to happen. And it's all real hype. I love this sort of like going into the last week, because we didn't get last year, I think, so much. Last season so much. But yeah, this season where it is still all up in the air for RLCS and RLRS as well, even more so. Like last season in RLRS, there was just 4 strong teams. Everyone else, no one really cared about. This season, anyone can make it, and it is fan-fucking-tastic. It just shows EU depth is like that thing we keep banging on about. Oh yeah, it's there.
It is absolutely there, so make sure you keep it locked with everything in the Rocket League esports world, because those matches are going to be hype. And of course, as we approach the last couple of weeks, it means that we're going to figure out who's going to be in the promotion playoffs, who's going to be going to LAN as well. Next week, it will be all the league play ending off for the RLCS, so make sure you keep it locked for that. Again, some very important matches that we just highlighted, so we'll cover all of that on the RLAfterShock podcast, at RLAfterShock on Twitter and twitch.tv/RLAfterShock, where hopefully we'll have a live version of the show at some point sometime soon. Again, Frag League and TCS takes up all of our fucking time, Bacon. So we can barely keep that up. And actually, it is Tuesday as we're recording this at like 3 o'clock. So, you know, I've got Frag League later tonight. So make sure you tune into that. It's going to be great. You know, also make sure you check out the podcast on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and most other major platform distribution centers. You can go to anchor.fm/RLAftershock to find your favorite platform or request your favorite way to listen. Again, that's anchor.fm/RLAftershock. Bacon, any final words before we send off for another week?
I'm currently watching a video of a seal on my phone. It's fucking adorable.
Aww. Is that adorable as your dog?
Love seals.
Who made a guest appearance in TCS.
Let's just say it right now. Seals are like just sea dogs. That is it. They're adorable.
I think we should rename them to sea dogs. And we're gonna get a petition going to legally change the name of a seal to a sea dog. So make sure you keep it locked to the socials for that one, because that's going to be a fucking interesting post I'm going to make. But until that point, we'll see you back here next week for even more of the Aftershock.